Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome into a special live edition of the Breakaway Bandits podcast, part of the Sports Insanity Network. I'm Mike Griffin, joined as always by Noah Tremblay and Nathan Moser. And we're live today because today is March 3rd. It's Friday. It's not even Freaky Friday, but it's NHL trade deadline day. And although most of the trades have already happened, we're still here. We'll be here for the next couple of hours to see what else occurs, gentlemen. The buildup has been spectacular. How we doing?
Oh, this has been one of the most memorable, probably one of the most active trade deadlines we've ever had, like trade deadline weeks. Some of the names, and we'll get to all these names. We're going to be on for like probably 4 hours, or something like that. We will figure it out. But trade deadline, I think, ends at 3, but Eastern. But yeah, just some of the names, and we'll go through all the trades. I've got all of them in front of me. Just some of these trades are just kind of like out of left field. Like, I didn't think this guy was going to go anywhere, or geez, I never thought this guy was going to stay with this team. And it's been crazy.
Yeah, completely just craziness this whole last couple of weeks. Just people so many big names being traded, so many surprising names being traded. We'll get to probably a good few of them here in a minute, but yeah, just so many. I'm looking at the page right now, and it's just like you scroll forever, and there's just so many trades that started like early February, and just so many trades that go through.
Yeah, so I mean, I think probably I think the first trade that really kicked everything off, not necessarily just this week, but really just this whole frenzy that's happened was, and we've talked about it before, but the Tarasenko deal. It just seems like ever since the Tarasenko deal happened, it's just been nonstop.
It really has, since the break, All-Star break, that's when the trades started. You're right. Tarasenko kind of set everything in motion. And now, let's be real. The East is an arms race.
Yeah.
That's what the Eastern Conference has become. It's an arms race.
Yeah.
I'm not here for it.
And I mean, one of the deals we could talk about, one of the many deals that the Toronto Maple Leafs have done. They acquired Ryan O'Reilly, Noel Acciari, and Josh Pilar. Yeah. And Josh Pilar from the St. Louis Blues. St. Louis, a team who, was a team that we thought, it was always rumored about O'Reilly, Tarasenko, and Barbashev being the 3 names to look out for, possibly moving on from the Blues organization. And now that's fine. That's officially happened, and we can get to all the deals there. But in this one, with O'Reilly, who was the captain of the Blues, he goes to the Leafs along with 25% of his salary goes there. Noel Acciari and Josh Pilar. The Blues acquire a first-round pick in 2023, a third-round pick in 2023, second-round pick in 2024, Adam Gaudette and Mikhail Abramov. And then the Wild acquire a fourth-round pick in 2025 because the Wild played a little bit of a role dealing with the cap situation. That's something I think this deadline we've seen more 3-team trades than I think we've ever seen before.
Mm-hmm.
Not the only good use of the Arizona Coyotes. If we're going to be real, we're going to be real. Sorry.
Well, there's been a lot of kind of mismanagement, and I know that the Coyotes have gotten a lot of criticism for some of their stuff that they've done in the last week. Obviously, we talk about the Chychrun trade and stuff like that with him going to Ottawa, but they acquired Jakub Voracek yesterday from the Blue Jackets. There's talk that Voracek's probably not playing ever again. He's probably going to be retiring. So that's just more. That's a ton of someone had the amount. I think it was $25 million or more in LTIR money.
Yeah, it's insane. But
I think
back to
57% of their payroll cap.
Yeah,
wow. That's insane. But I mean, going back to the Maple Leafs trade, this is gotta be for me one of the top three most impactful. I think in terms of just the initial impact. I mean, you talk about Ryan O'Reilly, who's still playing at a high level, and he goes to, I mean, because obviously, no Akari is a decent player, but the big deal here is Ryan O'Reilly, and to put that on a Toronto Maple Leafs team, that like you said, like the East is an arms race, and after the Rangers got their Tarasenko deal, the Maple Leafs followed up with the Ryan O'Reilly deal, and it was blow for blow at this point.
Yeah, I like the O'Reilly deal. I've read some things about maybe they moved Tavares to wing or this, but you gotta love a top three down the middle of Austin Matthews, Ryan O'Reilly, John Tavares, because of how it would match up potentially with Tampa in the first round, and then second round. Listen, I will not say a bad word about Patrice Bergeron and David Krejci down the middle, and then you throw in Charlie Coyle, who could play their third line center. That's really well matched up if you're the Leafs. If you could get by Tampa and you wind up playing Boston in the second round, but
I think that's what they've done too. The Leafs have done. They originally, I think they had O'Reilly as the second line center, and then they had Tavares on the left wing, and then I think they changed it up so that now O'Reilly's the third line center on there. So you have Matthews on line one for the center, then Tavares, and then O'Reilly. Which, I mean, that has to be one of the deepest trios at center in the entire league, if not the deepest.
God, easy number one.
I still like Boston. Patrice Bergeron's a Hall of Famer. David Krejci's a Hall of Famer.
Well, they're the quickest team to get to 100 points. This Boston Bruins team is the quickest team to get to 100 points in league history.
Remember the last team that set a regular season record, the Tampa Bay Lightning, and what good did that do them? They got swept in the first round by the Columbus Blue Jackets.
I think this Boston team wouldn't get.
Well, I'm not saying they will. I think this is a completely different team.
It just goes to show you don't know what could happen. It doesn't.
Yeah, that's the point.
By the way, per Darren Dreger, the Devils acquire Curtis Lazar from the Canucks.
Okay. Curtis Lazar's a nice bottom six forward. Good penalty killer.
Yeah, and with the Canucks, they're clearly selling. I mean, some of the other moves that we'll get to, obviously getting rid of Luke Schenn, Bo Horvat, which happened before the Tarasenko deal even happened with the Rangers. Bo Horvat going from the Canucks to the Islanders. That really was the one that kicked everything off, because then all of a sudden, the trade deadline's coming up, and here the Ducks trade their captain to the Islanders. Not the first time they would do that either in their history.
Yeah, the Islanders, and then they give Horvat that massive, what was it, an 8-year deal?
Yeah, 8 by 8.5, something like that.
Man, Islanders, you better hope that these three work out, because you're tied in with money for the next 3-4 years.
Again, we're talking about building it down the middle. So you have Barzal locked up, and then you have Horvat locked up. So I'm more curious if Lou's got something cooking over the next 3 hours. I think he does, just because of how Lou operates. But
maybe.
And Vancouver's weird. They're in a weird situation. I'm sorry I'm getting a little off topic, but they made that deal with Horvat. They make other deals. But then they trade a first-round pick for Filip Hronek.
Right.
I don't understand the positioning of why you would give up a first here.
I heard they're already over the cap for next year.
Yeah, and again, name to watch people have been talking about is JT Miller today. I don't know how likely that is, but...
Yeah, there were talks about maybe going to Pittsburgh. It's really interesting because Pittsburgh and Vancouver in the last few days, they've had dialogue. A lot of people wondered if it was going to be Brock Besser going to Pittsburgh. And then all of a sudden it kind of shifted to JT Miller. Now that seems to be what everyone's been talking about, if like Pittsburgh would be acquiring Miller from Vancouver. So it's very interesting. We'll see if it stays on JT Miller. We'll see. We'll see if anything even happens. Because like I said, you start Besser, you go to JT Miller, and then all of a sudden, is anything going to happen? It's something to keep an eye on.
I think that's an interesting point because both Besser and JT Miller both have term. JT Miller just signed a new contract over the summer.
Right.
And Brock Besser, I think, has 2 years left. So I really don't know the direction of the Canucks. I really just don't know it. I'm very confused.
They're kind of in limbo right now.
In the Canucks, from what I've seen from like content creators that I've seen that cover like the Canucks and stuff like that, like the hockey guy, he's a Canucks fan. It seems like this is almost like the worst era that their franchise has been in. Obviously, like the Sabres came in around 1970, have never won a cup either, and it's just, one of the biggest things that they have to worry about, because a couple contracts are going to be coming up, I think, in Elias Pettersson and Quinn Hughes. And you got to convince those guys to stay. Meanwhile, they essentially picked JT Miller over Horvat, because they could have given that money to Horvat, and Horvat could have stayed and have been the captain, but they chose to go with Miller. It was really hard to not go with Miller, considering the fact that he had almost a 100-point season last year. But I think we all, he's not going to hit those numbers again, and we all kind of figured at the time that probably was not going to happen again. But you got to convince Pettersson to stay, and you got to convince Quinn Hughes to stay, and that might be a tall task with how things have been going lately over there.
And the other point to that, Nate, is Bo Horvat's a homegrown guy. Mm-hmm. If you sign Bo Horvat, that's a homegrown guy. Pettersson and Hughes are homegrown guys, so they're going to look around and go, this is how you treat A, the captain of the team, but B, a guy you've drafted, developed, and he's been here since day one, as opposed to JT Miller, who was acquired via trade from the Tampa Bay Lightning. I'm not saying there's a bad rapport between Hughes, Pettersson, Miller. I don't know. I'm not in the Vancouver Canucks locker room. I've never been to Vancouver.
Well, we've seen how bad their organization can be at times.
Oh, yeah, with the Bruce Boudreau stuff. But to me, I've always felt this way in any sport, hockey, baseball, basketball, football. When it comes to a homegrown guy, there's a certain kind of excitement fans get when you sign that guy long-term, as opposed to, okay, I'm going to sign this big-name free agent. We're hoping it works out. But that could be maybe because I've been burned by that many times, a big-name free agent that doesn't come through.
Yeah, and well, that's the thing, too. When you draft someone and you get them to a long-term contract, like it's like you hit on someone in the draft, and that's like a big thing, because as much as cool as it is to hit, there's a lot of teams that will first round picks, second round picks, third round picks, where they just won't hit. And the lower you go in the rounds, that becomes more easier to do, to miss. But some of these first round picks, it's like you're hoping that these guys don't bust. We've seen busts. Nail Yakupov is probably the biggest bust, one of the biggest busts in league history, because that was a first overall pick for the Oilers, and now he's in the KHL.
So, sorry to cut you off. Here's a tweet from David Pinata of the fourth period. Some chatter with less than 3 hours till the deadline. The Sharks want a draft pick for Vlad Nemestikov. Winnipeg and Dallas are looking at bottom six forwards. Connor Sheary is an option. The Jets are also eyeing a bigger ad. The Kings made an offer for Jacob Chikrin that includes prospect Anders Bjornfoot and 2 first-round picks. Calgary's quiet for now, and the Seattle Kraken have been in the mix for John Klingberg. So that's from David Pinata. I hope I'm saying that right.
Klingberg to Seattle.
I think I've seen them Seattle connected to him. I think back to the offseason, I think they were a possibility. And then he ended up going to Anaheim instead. So I think that interest has been there for a little while.
Seattle's got to do something. They owe it to the fans and those players. They're in the playoff race. Do something. You can't sound it.
Did Klingberg and Alexiak ever play together in Dallas?
Yeah, because I think Alexiak was their pick in the expansion draft. I don't know if they were part. Oh, wait.
Right.
Yeah. Elliot Friedman hearing Vlad Namestnikov to win. So I'm assuming that means Winnipeg. Unless that's a W, that's an upside down M, and he means Minnesota. But we'll wait for confirmation.
Yeah, no, that's probably, which is interesting because did Namestnikov ever play a game for the Sharks?
I'll see if he played last night.
Because he was only there. I mean, I don't even know if he was there a
couple of days.
It was only a couple of days. Was similar to the Jonathan Quick situation, and let me go to that trade because that one was one of the more. Well, I guess the first one was the one that caught you off guard, and then the second one was like, okay, well, that makes a little bit more sense.
Some would say it escalated quickly.
Yeah, yes, I've seen so many Jonathan Quick puns in the last couple of days on Twitter.
I mean, because you can never go wrong with a quick pun.
I think Shayna Goldman had a couple good ones on Quick, but she did the like quickly or like one of those, but then she did another one that was like really clever, and I don't remember what it was. But gotta love it. Gotta love the comedy to go with this too. But yeah. So the first trade that happened was March 1st. 8:27 a.m. was when this got announced. This deal was pretty much rumored though at like midnight, because I think the players had already known. I think the trade call might have gotten completed in the morning, but like the previous night, I think that this was made. The Blue Jackets acquired Jonathan Quick, a conditional first-round pick in 2023 and the third-round pick in 2024 for Vladislav Gavrikov and Jonas Korpisalo. So Korpisalo is a guy, he's been rumored to be getting traded for a little while now. He finally gets moved. And then Gavrikov was another guy who like wasn't playing any games, similar like Chychrun wasn't playing any games for Arizona because they were holding him out for trade-related reasons. And but guys, I guess your reaction to the idea, we'll get to the second part of the trade with Quick, but just the idea that Quick got moved at all is just weird. And I mean, you wasn't happy about it either, which we could get to.
I don't think if I was a Los Angeles Kings fan, and I've been a Los Angeles Kings fan for a while, I would be so mad at the organization right now because yes, he hasn't had the best year, but he wasn't your number one goalie. That was Logan Thompson until he got hurt, and then you brought in another piece. I can't remember who was starting over him, but he had a decent year and you decide to let him go. And I think a guy who's meant that much to your organization, he's won 2 Stanley Cups with you. He's been a constant goaltender for you for years and years and years. And it's not like you guys are selling. So like you need a good piece from him. You're what, second in your division? I think. Let me check real quick. Check the standings here real quick. Yeah, they're second in the Pacific. Tied right now for first with Vegas. No idea why this trade happened. I have no clue.
Yeah. And the thing is that the Kings fans are upset because of the Quick trade. But it was also the fact that it's the fact that, I mean, he was one of those pieces on the Cup team. And you look at like Dustin Brown, for example. He was the captain for the Kings when they won their 2 cups, the first 2 cups in franchise history. And he retired a King, and they just hung up his number into the rafters and everything like that. And they honored him. And he was a King his entire career. And there's talk that that'll be the case with Doughty. That'll be the case with Kopitar. They're going to be Kings for life. That's the only team that they're going to play for. All of a sudden, Quick just isn't going to be a King anymore. Like mean, he was the goalie, one of the most important, arguably the most important position on a hockey team, and now he's gone. And there was also the fact that I don't think they were totally happy, the fact that it was Columbus. Some people wondered if he was just going to retire instead of going to Columbus. Let me get to the second part of this. So, first of all, I give the Jackets a lot of credit because they could have held this whole thing out. They could have tried to convince him to come. They could have said, well, you know what? If you're not going to report for us, then, we're keeping you. And they didn't do that. What they did do, if I can find it here, this move was made yesterday. So Jackets acted rather quickly. Quick is now a member of the Vegas Golden Knights. Quick is traded to Vegas, and the Columbus Blue Jackets acquire Michael Hutchinson, goalie, 7th-round pick in 2025, and the Blue Jackets retain 50% of Quick's salary. So Vegas gets Quick on half of his salary. And like I said, good on Columbus. They didn't try to make things work. They didn't try to drag things out or basically be stubborn with the whole thing. Quick didn't want to be there. They let him go.
A plus to their Twitter team, Nate. I don't know if you saw this. I was telling Mike earlier. Did you see this by the Jackets Twitter?
Oh, was it the one where the rafters? They were putting Quick's number to the rafters as a Blue Jacket.
It was something like that. There was another one that said like your time with us was brief, but it was amazing. And there was a picture of Quick like AI generated into a Blue Jackets jersey that said thank you, Jonathan Quick.
Yeah, there was the Coyotes did that because the Coyotes were the third team in on the Kane trade, which we'll get to that one. And Arizona did the same thing. They put Kane in like a Coyotes jersey, and they're just like, "Thanks for everything." Like, just
really funny.
It's a great move for Vegas because Logan Thompson's been hurt. Aiden Hill's played really well.
Leonard's been out for the year.
Right, Leonard's out for the year. So here's Jonathan Quick, a playoff proven goalie that you can go use if you need to. And it's a good insurance policy. By the way, per Pierre LeBrun, it's Nemestikov to Winnipeg for a 4th-round pick in 2025. Seen a lot of that, too, this year. We're not talking about this year's draft. We're talking about drafts in 2024 and 2025.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. But, listen, I love the deal for Vegas. I really do. I do think the Kings did Jonathan Quick a little bit dirty, but at the end of the day, it's a business. We understand that, but again, I like when a guy plays his whole career for one team. Jonathan Quick's time in Columbus was just as memorable as Henrik Lundqvist's time in Washington.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, jeez. But yeah, so, and we're going to keep some names. I think one of the top names that is still available for possible trade is like James Van Riemsdyk. It appears I just seen something about that. Chris Johnston. The Flyers are looking for a 3rd-round pick back for James Van Riemsdyk. Vegas, Winnipeg, and Seattle among those with interest. Calgary has inquired too, but no longer seem to be in the buying frame of mind. So, which that's interesting too, because I had heard rumblings when it comes to Calgary, they're not interested in being buyers anymore. There's talk about maybe, and again, we'll have to see if it gets anywhere, about maybe Elias Lindholm getting traded. And I mean, he's one of their best forwards. And some people were wondering about a reunion with Carolina, which would be crazy. And I would be all for that.
I mean, I think Carolina's got to do something here.
They do. The only moves that they've made, they got Gostisbehere and then they got Puljujarvi. But you see what all these other teams have done. Yeah. And it's just not the same level.
Right. And you can't be status quo because Max Pacioretty, who we thought would be back, got hurt again, going to miss the whole season. So you put him on LTIR. You have this free space. You got to use it here. Your window of opportunity is only so big, and this team is so good. I got to tell you, playing in the Metro, it's not going to be fun playing either the Devils or the Hurricanes in the first round.
Right. Yeah, it's it's all about. I mean, I think the perfect way to describe this whole thing is that it is an arms race. It really is an arms race, and when you look at Carolina, it seems like they got to maybe make a little bit more moves here. All right, Mike, we're going to go to obviously we've talked about the Tarasenko on a podcast episode specifically, but we're going to get to your other big trade now.
Oh boy.
We all kind of knew that this was happening, but it took a lot of roster management from Drury and the Rangers. It took a lot of, I mean, didn't you guys technically roster less players, or you guys did some really interesting stuff to try to maneuver around the cap stuff?
For Sunday's game against the LA Kings, the rule is you have to have 18 skaters, 20 skaters. So the Rangers had called up Ryan Carpenter because Ryan Lindgren had gotten hurt Saturday in Washington. But both Ryan Carpenter and Braden Schneider did not play in that game. They sat on the bench and didn't do anything. They then sent both of them down to Hartford to finagle with the cap. They had to put Jake Lecision on waivers, and they trade Vitaly Kravtsov to the Canucks, and that's really how a lot of this went down.
Yeah. So we'll get to the actual deal. So the Rangers finally get Patrick Kane after it being literally the worst kept secret. So to the Rangers, it's Patrick Kane and Cooper Zech. I don't know.
Zech. I imagine it's Sech.
Zippity doo dah.
Yeah. The Chicago Blackhawks acquire a conditional second-round pick, a conditional second-round pick. It doesn't have a year for it under this anyway.
A second-round pick in the 2023 draft and a fourth-round pick in the 2025 draft.
That's not what it has here. No, that's I'm just going to read what it has on here. Chicago is apparently getting a conditional second-round pick. Maybe they just don't know the year of that yet. But,
I think it depends on if the Rangers either get to the conference finals or re-up with Kane.
Oh, yeah. If okay, so I remember reading this thing here. So it's a 2023 second-round pick if the Rangers lose in the first or second round of the playoffs. If the Rangers win the first two rounds of the playoffs, it becomes a 2024 first-round pick.
Yeah. So there's that. There's the fourth-round pick in 2023, Vili Sarjarvi, Andy Walensky, and then the Blackhawks retain 50% of Kane's salary. And then the Coyotes, as we mentioned, they were the third team in on this. This was a three-team trade. The Coyotes get a third-round pick in 2025, and they retain 25% of Kane's salary. So Patrick Kane was a Coyote for 5 seconds.
Yay, Coyote fans.
Look at them getting all the legends like Chris Pronger and Pavel Datsyuk.
And Patrick Kane actually isn't retired, so it actually counts.
It doesn't count. He never played for them.
It counts. He's not retired. Like those other guys.
Great.
By the way, how would that be back-to-back in a shootout? Datsyuk and Kane.
Oh,
jeez. Hey, don't you forget about the penalty shot that Pronger had for Edmonton in the 2006 Cup Final.
True.
Very, very pivotal. That was just the whole thing for me. I mean, like I said, arms race. The Rangers were like, wow, Tarasenko or Kane, and then they get the one, and then the others still wanted to go there, so you just get both. And I'm just like, okay, guess you could get both. So and Mike, you watched his first game.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, you guys did not win yesterday, but how was his play? I know you texted me that just the magic between him and Panarin. It's just it looks like it never stopped from the time in Chicago.
him and Panarin looked really, really good together. There was a cross-ice seam pass in the first period from Panarin to Kane, or Kane to Panarin for a one-timer that Cam Talbot makes a really nice stop on. But it was just like they know. They played in Chicago. They haven't played together in years. And it's just like the magic's still there. Okay, I'm going to put this in wrestling terms for Noah because it's like when a tag team breaks up but they reform again and the duo keeps going. It was honestly the biggest beneficiary of all this is Vincent Trocheck. Who gets to play with both of them. But
yeah,
I also think the Kane stuff has opened up Tarasenko because he scored the OT winner the other night in Philly. He scored a beautiful goal last night. So now there's going to be consistent lines. And I think that's the biggest thing the Ranger fans or the Rangers know now going in. So the lines will be consistent.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously like Tarasenko and Panarin had history from like their 2011 like World Juniors and stuff like that. Or so they're friends too. But I mean, when you talk about I think it's better that it worked out that you put Panarin and Kane together because that chem has been always there since their time in Chicago. And then Tarasenko, I mean, you put Tarasenko with was it Zibanejad and Kreider?
Yeah.
And that's that's going to be a great line too. And like as you said, I mean, good for Trocheck too, because I mean I haven't looked at Trocheck's like the lines he's been on his entire career. This probably is number one for him. The number one line he's probably ever been on, most talented line. So
he's had a really nice year.
Yeah.
So he's going to benefit. But I want to go to this route because Nate, we have texted over this. We've had a group in our group chat. I understand what the Chicago Blackhawks are doing, but I got to tell you, I think they flubbed this whole thing.
Yeah.
Because I get it. Patrick Kane wanted to be a New York Ranger, and that was the only team he could go to at the deadline because he has final say. Why didn't you do it in the summertime? You knew Kyle Davidson said these words when he got hired. I envision this to be a rebuild.
Yeah.
Rebuilds don't include Patrick Kane, Jonathan Toews. And this is not a disrespect on either one. Both are Hall of Famers. Jonathan Toews, I hope you get healthy.
You're right.
But to wind up with a conditional pick and this and that, to me, like, this is Patrick freaking Kane.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we could talk about, he's 32 or he's 32 or 33. He's passing. He's still a tremendous hockey player. So why don't you say in the summer, listen, Patrick, when your career's over, 88's going up in the United Center. Everybody knows that. Why don't you just say, you know what? What teams will you go to over the summer? That way we can work out this deal now because it will help us for the future. Same thing with Toews.
I mean, Mike, you're talking about a guy who's played 55 games, but he's 30. He is 30. What is that? 34. He's about to be 34 years old. And he still has 16 goals and 29 assists.
Yeah. And he was the best player on a bad team. And let's face it, that era of Blackhawks hockey, when they won the 3 cups, it's over, it's done. But you were willing, Kyle Davidson, to move a 24-year-old in Alex DeBrincat, a 21-year-old in Kirby Dach. By the way, how's that looking for Montreal?
Looking pretty good.
But you held on to Toews and Kane for the benefits of we can move them at the deadline. To me, from a business standpoint, it doesn't make sense. I get it from the fans' point of view. We love these guys, but they're not the future of this team. They're going to walk in free agency to get what you can for them now. We'll honor them when they return to Chicago. When their career's over, 18, 88, and 19, they're going up into the rafters. That is as simple as this gets. And I'm not even that smart. And I knew this was the way I would go.
Go ahead, Noah.
Well, there just comes a time where even though how legendary Kane and Taze are, you have to realize, like you said, Mike, that this is not, if you want to rebuild, then they can't be around because they're just going to be wasted. You're not going to win with these two guys. They're not, if you're doing a rebuild. So get what you can now. And to wait now until a trade deadline, you didn't get the best deal, Chicago. You could have gotten, I think, a much better deal if you traded him to the Rangers back in the summer.
Weren't the Sharks in like the same boat here with I mean, to a bigger extent with like Thornton and Marlowe? Because I had heard multiple people say like you kept those guys way too long. Like,
yeah. Well, think about what the Sharks have to do now, because they've put Mike Greer in a really tough spot where he has to deal off other pieces he might have liked. Timo Myers could have been the face of the San Jose Sharks. Yeah. Instead, they waited too long and they had to recoup assets that were lost. So that's what had to happen in San Jose.
Yeah, and the thing is that, I mean, just because you're doing a rebuild doesn't mean that's got to take super, super long, because by the time you might be turning things around, I mean, look, there was no Kane and Taze needed to be the guys that needed to go. There's no reason you couldn't have kept Doc, and I would argue there's no reason you couldn't have kept DeBrincat. I know DeBrincat's a few years older than Doc, but like still, like he would have been. He's
24.
only like, yeah. So I mean, like, you know, if this rebuild goes like a few years, I mean, he'll be hitting his prime. I mean, this guy's already hit 40 goals in his career multiple times.
I posed this question to Dan Rosen on his weekly mailbag on NHL.com. Shout out Dan Rosen. And I asked that because I didn't get, and he goes, essentially, I might be wrong here, but I believe this is how he phrased it. In this league, you don't pay wingers the big money, you pay the centers big money. But if that's the case, I think Kirby Doc's playing center in Montreal.
Yeah.
And that didn't turn out well. You didn't let the kid develop. And essentially that's what bit Chicago. And look, they can have a great rebuild. I'm not saying they can't. I'm just saying the way they've gone about the last year is how I disagree with how they've gone about. Also, I think Jonathan Taze would have been a perfect fit in Seattle, but that's a digression for later, because now he can't be moved because of him having COVID.
Well,
Get better, Jonathan.
He'll still be a name to look at in the summer for sure, because I could see Seattle maybe swinging a deal for him, maybe in like, you know, maybe. Actually, no, he'll be a free agent then. So maybe they'll sign him as like a free agent.
Yeah, he'll definitely be a big free agent name for sure.
He also might just retire and say, I only wanted to play for Chicago.
Yeah, that could be it too.
Yeah, I can see him doing that.
Because I personally thought he was going to retire after he didn't play in 2020. I thought he would say, you know what, I'm done. I gave this city everything. I even built this city on rock and roll. But if he wanted to, listen, no matter when he retires, when Kane retires, they're both getting their numbers retired. They're both going to Toronto for the Hall of Fame. It is what it is. I just feel the Blackhawks missed an opportunity.
They did. Yeah. They 100% did. You get value out of them two ways.
Blackhawk fans, if you're listening, comment, let us know.
Yeah. Like you get value out of them playing for you for so long, but then you get value out of trading them when you're ready to rebuild and move on from them.
I'm glad you mentioned about Meyer, because that was one of arguably the biggest name that got moved this entire deadline. And I feel like that's a really good transition here for this. So that was another one of the worst kept secrets, is that Meyer was going to get that Timo Meyer, a forward for the San Jose Sharks, was going to get moved. And it was just a matter of where he was going to go. I know there was talks about Carolina. There were other teams mentioned as well, but the team that always seemed like they were at the top of the list was the New Jersey Devils. And on February 26th in the afternoon, the deal would become official. So the Devils acquired Timo Meyer, Scott Harrington, Timur Ibragimov, Santeri Hataka, Zachary Emmond, and a 2024 fifth-round pick. So already the Devils get the best asset, but they also have a ton of guys as well to try to even everything out. And in addition, the Sharks acquire, first of all, they take on 50% of Meyer's salary. They get Andreas Johnson, Fabian Zetterlund, Shakir
Mukhamadullin.
Yes. Nikita.
Spell it, Nate. Spell it.
This is
Hotiuk.
Okatuk. I have no idea.
A conditional 2023 first-round pick, a conditional second-round pick in 2024, and a 2024 seventh-round pick. So a lot of assets going back and forth. Meyer is now on the Devils. The Devils have, with all the talent that they have, Jack Hughes is incredible. Dougie Hamilton on the blue line. It's just get another big piece.
Let me pose this question, and now I want to see how you guys feel about this. Does this trade put New Jersey as the best competition for Boston in the East?
Oh,
because to me, I think it does. I think now the biggest threat to Boston is New Jersey.
I feel like a lot of these teams are like evenly matched because Boston's so good that
it's not who will win the Eastern Conference Finals, it's who will give Boston the best run for their money. Because I mean, I don't see a world in which Boston does not make it to at least the Eastern Conference Finals. But I mean, you definitely can make a case for the Rangers that they're the best competition to Boston. But I think Meyer going to the Devils, oh man, I think that is a huge move.
I'm gonna say no. I'm gonna say I'm not even gonna say the Rangers because I don't want to seem biased. I still think the team that we're not talking about, and I expect them to do something by 3:00 today, the Tampa Bay Lightning. We're not talking about Tampa Bay for some unghastly reason. And I know people are going to talk about, look at what they gave up for Tanner Jeannot. What do you freaking do? Look at what they gave up for Brandon Hagel and what they do last year. They went to the Cup final for the third straight year.
Yeah, after winning 2 cups and then
winning 2 cups. So
yeah,
let's slow the roll here. Boston's great, Toronto's great, Tampa's great, Carolina's great, the Rangers are great, New Jersey's great. The East is great. The East is just going to beat up each other. And the Western Conference team is going to be waiting, feet up on a desk with a cigar in their mouth, being like, who do we get to beat in 5 games in the Cup final this year?
Yeah, it's just the East, the playoffs. I'm looking forward to these playoffs just because it really is. It's like it's going to be like a bloodbath in the playoffs. Like it's going to be absolutely insane. But it's so hard to try to pick who is the biggest competition for Boston. I definitely think Tampa's in there. Look at Tampa. They haven't done much to their roster because they don't have to. They keep just constantly being the team to beat in the playoffs. And I think it's another worst kept secret, a lot of those on here, where Toronto and Tampa are going to be playing each other most likely. And so you have Tampa that's just like, no, we're going to basically just keep with what we have. And Toronto is making all of these trades. They're like making another roster altogether to try to like stay relevant with not relevant, but keep up basically, because they want to make sure there is no doubt that they will win if the first round of the playoffs, because we all know what potentially could happen to the management and the coaching if they don't win a round this year.
And listen, you're right on Toronto, but I'll say this about Tampa. We talk about them keeping the same roster for the most part. They've been healthy this year. Braden Point's been healthy. Kucherov's been healthy. In years past, they've used those guys on LTIR to be able to stash them for the playoffs. They haven't been able. They don't have that luxury, but because they've been healthy for the most part, I'll say this. I'll say these two things. One, I still think they should add on the blue line. Joel Edmondson, I think, makes a lot of sense for Montreal. The other thing I'll say is this. They lost a key piece this summer when they lost Andre Palat. I see a lot of Andre Palat and Tanner Jeannot. So don't be surprised if Tanner Jeannot winds up being a great playoff performer for the Tampa Bay Lightning. It's magic. It just happens.
Yeah, everything just clicks with them in the come playoff time. They're just ready to go.
Very, very true. They're the excellence of the NHL. Although you could say that's Boston, though, because Boston's just somehow good every year.
Oh, dude, yeah, okay. Yeah.
The East is a minefield at this point. Like everyone's just ducking for cover after the next big move a team makes.
Going back to just real quickly, because I pulled up the Devils stats. So Meyer, who is having just an incredible year, obviously. I mean, the dude's just entering his prime for them. He's joining a team that already has Jack Hughes, who has 74 points in 56 games, 36 goals, 38 assists. Dougie Hamilton, who just tied a career high for the not a career high, a Devils franchise high in goals by a defenseman in a season with 18. He's passing that probably too. So Dougie Hamilton's going to hold the record for most goals by a defenseman in a season for the Devils. 18 goals right now, 40 assists, 58 points in 60 games. Nico Hischier is 4 goals away from hitting 30 goals. Jesper Bratt, the very good defenseman for them. Dawson Mercer, 20 goals, 23 assists for 43 points.
He scored in 7 straight games, which is a franchise record.
Yeah, you have this team that has so much skill, and Dougie Hamilton's about to have a franchise record. Mercer has a franchise record. They're getting Meyer. Jack Hughes is a stud. And how about Vitek Vanacek? This guy who, for a while, Washington Capital fans didn't know who was going to be their starting goalie between Samsonov and Vanacek. They lose both. They get rid of both, and then Vanacek becomes a pretty good goalie for the Devils. Just it's very interesting how it works out. And they've got have like a 3 goalie system going in New Jersey. Vanacek has played the most games. Blackwood's in there. I think is Blackwood on IR. Was he hurt?
Yeah, Blackwood's on IR.
And then so they brought up Akira Schmid, who's played in 11 games so far this season. So, but you mentioned Boston. Let's get to Boston because it just seems like so they're doing so many things right. They're having just the season for the ages. Linus Ullmark scores a goalie goal like earlier in the week, which was incredible. It seems like a goalie scores 2 ways. Either he shoots it down the ice himself, which is the cooler way to do it, or he makes a save and then someone accidentally scores on their empty net. So Ullmark flat out just shot it down and was able to get the goal, which good for him. I'm very happy for him. But let's get back to the actual Bruins and just their historic season. They could just very well, we're having the best season of our career, of our, one of our best franchises. Like I said, fastest franchise to hit 100 points in a season. They're not sitting on their laurels. We want to make sure we're the best. We want to make sure we stay on top. And they've done a pretty good job. Sweeney deserves a ton of credit for what he's done so far. First move I'll talk about. It's a 3-team trade, and it happened on the 23rd of February. The Bruins acquired Dmitry Orlov and Garnet Hathaway from the Washington Capitals. The Caps acquire Craig Smith, Andrei Svetlikov, a 2023 first-round pick, a 2025 second-round pick, a 2024 third-round pick, and the Caps retained 50% of Orlov's salary. And then the Wild are the third team in this trade. The Wild, as a result of retaining 25% of Orlov's cap hit, they get a 2023 fifth-round pick. So, that's one of the moves right there where you could tell that they were going all the way. And with Boston, there was talk about them maybe trying to get Chychrun from Arizona. They don't get Chychrun. They get a great defenseman in Dmitry Orlov, arguably the best defenseman, I guess, other than Carlson, that second best defenseman that the Caps have. Garnet Hathaway, great depth for your bottom six. Craig Smith, I don't think it really kind of worked out there. They wanted to move on from that contract, so the Caps get him. And it's just, I guess, guys, what are your thoughts on Orlov and Hathaway going to Boston?
I love it personally. I've always felt Dmitry Orlov was a little underrated in Washington as a top 4 guy, especially behind John Carlson, who's all world. Garnet Hathaway to me is a perfect Boston Bruin. He's tough, he's nasty, he's physical, and he could add some offense if you need him to, but he's the perfect Bruin. So, to me, both moves give the Bruins outstanding depth at both forward and even on the back end. And it kind of gives Jim Montgomery some flexibility to experiment if he really wants to come before the playoffs.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, this is just Boston being excellent this season and then hitting the marks again. And they hit the nail on the head. They get these 2 young players who you said, Mike, great depth additions who just make a great team even better somehow. And then we get to another big trade that they made. We'll in a second that I think is even better.
We all good?
Yeah, that's all I had to say.
Okay. We
were sitting here waiting for you.
I thought we lost Mike for a second. I thought it seemed like his.
To be honest, you lost me at hello, but to be fair, I'm sharing the live streams on socials now. So
yeah, I'm also double checking on Twitter to see if there were any updates. So far, it seems pretty quiet.
Yeah, we're working through this
because everybody made trades before the actual deadline day.
Yeah, so one of these rumors, Twitter rumor people, the Hurricanes and Canucks are talking JT Miller.
Ooh.
That's interesting.
JT Miller to the Hurricanes? Hello.
You have to keep an eye on that for sure. I also want to, sticking with the Bruins, because obviously with Orlov and Hathaway,
and not even Anne Hathaway.
No, that's at this point with all the moves Boston makes, she's next. No, the what? Get another person on the Bruins, but no. The next team, the next trade that I wanted to talk about though, is the Boston Bruins getting Tyler Bertuzzi.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
because I mean that's, you think with like Orlov and Hathaway that like, okay, well that's probably their big move, like with all the other talents that they have. And then they go and get Tyler Bertuzzi, who we knew was on the block, but we were trying to figure out what teams would be in on him. He ends up leaving the Red Wings. He goes to Boston, and the Red Wings acquire, as a result, a first-round pick in 2024, a fourth-round pick in 2025, and they retain 50% of Bertuzzi's salary. So, again, forward depth, the guy can score. Bertuzzi is a great talent. He's only, I think, like 27 years old, so, and it's just what was really rough yesterday when this trade went down is Dylan Larkin had re-signed for an 8-year contract, and he was the first person, as a result, because he signed that extension 8-year deal. They asked him about Bertuzzi. They were like really good friends, and just seeing Dylan just, having to talk about losing a teammate, it just shows you it's, while it's a business, it's personal for a lot of these guys, and it can be a rough part of it. But no, go ahead.
But yeah, no, I love the Tyler Bertuzzi move to Boston. I think this is the better one of their trades because, again, young guy. Mike, like you said with the defenseman that they got, he reminds me of Boston. He's a hard-nosed, tough as nails player, but he can score. I think we know that he can score. He's gotten 30 goals in a season. He got 30 goals in a season last year. And, he's had, trouble this year staying healthy and staying on the ice. But, 29 games played, he's got 4 goals and 10 assists. So he still can produce. And I think going to a team like Boston, that's a decent move. That's a really good move there for Boston.
It's a great move for Detroit, too, because, one, it does free up some money in case they want to do something over the next 2 hours. And I'm not putting anything past Steve Yzerman at all. The other part is didn't they get a first out of this?
A conditional first and a fourth.
Yeah. And listen, I trust Steve Yzerman at the draft. He doesn't even have to use the pick to make it worthwhile. So I really like where Detroit is. Obviously, it's a great move for Boston, and it gives them more depth and more grit, which, wow, they really need more grit. But it's a good move, I think, on both sides.
We have a trade that just went down, kind of like a minor trade. The Canadiens have acquired defenseman Frederick Allard from the Los Angeles Kings in exchange for forward Nate Schnarr. So
it's a great deal for the Kings.
I'm guessing.
No idea.
I'm guessing this is probably like trading prospects.
Yeah, I think that's prospects. I don't even know who that Nate Schnarr guy is.
I'm also waiting on a Jonathan Drouin deal. That's one that I've kind of.
I hope they trade Jonathan Drouin because I need Drouin off Montreal because he's one of those. I don't need him on my team for the rebuild.
No, I mean Drouin and Edmondson would be two guys I'd be watching right now if I'm Montreal. I don't know. It's weird that, to me, Montreal's kind of been quiet. Same thing with Anaheim. Like I'm waiting for those two teams in particular we're selling pieces here. We're open for business.
See, I don't know how much selling Montreal you can be because you did trade Dadonov, who I think was one of the big ones. You traded Evgeny Dadonov, but you got Denis Gurianov.
Which, by the way, that's a great deal. If Gurianov plays to his upside, that's a great deal.
Love the deal. He's still a young kid. He's only 25 years old, so he's going to give you the best years of his career down the line. I mean, Montreal is going young. The lines, you've got Suzuki. I will argue if Cole Caulfield doesn't get hurt, I think they're in a playoff race right now because he added that much offense to the team. But
they got to extend him. They got to get that done.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But Caulfield was breaking out. Nick Suzuki, I think, is he a top 10 center in the league? I think he is.
he's probably really close. But again, here's the thing I'll say about Suzuki and Montreal as a whole. Let these kids grow. Like what I said about Chicago and getting rid of a Doc, who, by the way, he's flourishing in Montreal.
I love Kirby Doc.
You know, I haven't seen a Kirby this successful since the Nintendo game Kirby.
He is pretty successful.
So if you go Kirby, Doc, Suzuki, you have these pieces. I'm just wondering, because I know how Jeff Gorton wants to run this, because he did a similar deal with the Rangers. So I would watch Drouin, Edmondson, everyone the insiders say, because it's not about the longevity of the rebuild. It's just getting the assets to make more moves and that flexibility. So that'd be something that's what I mean when I say Edmondson, Drouin. Montreal, I think, has been a little bit quiet. Love the Gurianov move, but I'd like to see a little bit more.
And like I said, I think Drouin needs to be the big one. I want to see Drouin moved because he has had not a very good season. He has no goals, 18 and only 18 assists. Sorry, buddy. It's over.
So here's a tweet from the NHL Watcher Twitter account. Shout out that. Bob McKenzie says, aside from the Oilers, the Sens and Leafs have kicked tires on Erik Karlsson. McKenzie goes on to say, offseason will be interesting to see how it plays out. Still a very tricky deal to make. So I guess Erik Karlsson won't get dealt today.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting that. With his cap hit and everything else, I just don't. I think that's something you need a little bit of time to work out. Like maybe if they were doing something like, you know, maybe in like another like if they started this trade like a week ago, I think that would have been how this would have.
Listen, I'll say this too on San Jose. Had they just get Arizona involved, they'll be the third team in on any deal. And then they could say Erik Karlsson was a Coyote for a while.
Yeah,
that's all you gotta do.
But I think, like I said, I think if this trade was going to go down today, it probably would have started like negotiations like a week ago. Like I just think with that cap hit and everything, like there's going to be a lot of talks about that, how you're going to make the money work. Obviously, if you get a third team involved, you got to have them on the same page. So I guess anything's possible, but my guess would be with that big of a contract, that's a summer move. Maybe at the draft when it goes together.
Here's my question, though. Ottawa just got Jacob Chikrin. Why are they back in on Karlsson?
I don't know.
That just feels like we want to. They're going to sing the song "Reunited" and it feels so good.
Real quickly from Pierre LeBrun, hearing that Pittsburgh is working to finalize a trade for Dmitry Kulikov from Anaheim.
There's Anaheim's first move.
So we'll keep an eye on that. Yeah, it was just like, all right, Eric, we're gonna let you go now. We gotta rebuild. All right, that's enough. You can come back. It's like.
I mean, I don't know how that happens, but it'd be an interesting one for sure.
Okay, well, who would be part of an Erik Karlsson trade? Shabbat for sure. Like
maybe Jake Sanderson or who's the guy they got? Who'd they got from Vegas? Barnstrom, Brandstrom.
Yeah,
that would probably be part of it. I would presume a first-round pick.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean,
they could just get all the pieces back from the original trade and just remake that trade.
Hey, San Jose, here's all these things we got from you. We'll give them back.
Isn't Balcers back on the Sharks? Like, could you give us Balcers back in order for us to include him as part of the trade?
Oh my God.
Yeah, but
Uh, uh, there's the Kulikov deal. Still waiting on seeing what's going back to Anaheim. I would presume it's a mid-round pick.
Let's talk about Pittsburgh while we obviously we're hearing about the Kulikov news. Michael Granlund going to Pittsburgh from the Nashville Predators. So this happened on March 1st, a couple days ago. Granlund goes to Pittsburgh, and a second-round pick in 2023 goes to Nashville. Now, I have not seen a lot of happy Pittsburgh fans on Twitter about this move because they had done some other stuff. They put McGinn on waivers, I think, to send in the minors, and Kapanen, all they get rid of Kapanen. Now Kapanen's in St. Louis. He just scored his first goal as a Blue the other day. They're trying to make room, and all of a sudden they go get Granlund's contract from Nashville, and it just seems like people were chanting "Fire Hextall," and it sounds like that chant is not going to be going away until the deed is done anytime soon. Anyway, what are your thoughts on Granlund going to Pittsburgh? I mean, do you like the move? Do you think that it's kind of an interesting but kind of weird move? What do you guys think?
I think it's interesting from this stamp. Mikael Granlund, and this could be a weird comparison. To me, Mikael Granlund's another version of a Jason Zucker kind. We'll give you pretty good offense, but a really reliable defensive forward. Block shots, can play, give you good minutes. But I want to go back to something you said, Nate, because you talked about the Pittsburgh fans. And the city of Pittsburgh is known to love Ranger fans. I know this for a fact. The city of Pittsburgh loves everything New York based. The fan base, this is your own fault. I want you to know this because the Pittsburgh Penguins had three major free agents this summer. Brian Rust, Evgeny Malkin, Chris Letang. What did the Pittsburgh Penguin fan base want? Well, got to have Brian Rust back because Brian Rust is a really good player. Okay. Chris Letang has to come back because we need the 87, 58, 71 combo. We need those three together for the entirety of their careers. So Ron Hextall did what he had to do to get all three of those guys back. And I think he did a really nice job. So there's a point in time where nostalgia matters against a business sense. Nostalgia-wise, it's great that those three guys are back. But in a business-wise, what sucks for Ron Hextall is I have to pay Evgeny Malkin and Chris Letang for what they'll give me over the next couple of years and what they've given to this franchise. Now, for the next 3 years, because I think that's what Malkin signed for, I have to consider this team in quote-unquote cup contention.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But what hurts is this team, to be real honest, this team isn't as great as it used to be. Right. I'm not going to say the era is over because Sidney Crosby's still Sidney freaking Crosby.
Mm-hmm.
But business-wise, he has to hold on to his first-round pick here for this reason. There has to be thought of life after 71, 87, 58. I can't just think about 2 and 3 years from now. I got to think 4, 5, 6 years down the line. So Ron Hextall's actually in a really tough spot. If you want to say trade someone like Jeff Carter, well, guess what? Jeff Carter has a no movement. Also, Jeff Carter, that's probably a tougher contract to move for them. So Ron Hextall's in a tough spot, if you ask me.
Yeah, because you almost want to rebuild, but you can't rebuild because you've still got 87, 58, and 71 still there. You can't do it yet. And so you got to do what you can. I mean, I think the Granlund deal is it's something. I think it's a decent deal for the Pittsburgh Penguins. It gets a guy who could, add some depth to this team. So, but that's really all you probably can do, because again, you can't say blow this whole thing up and, trade Malkin, Cross. You can't do that. But at the same time, you've got to win now. You got to try to win now because of 87 is still there.
We have a tweet from Josh Yohe or Josh Yo. I apologize if I pronounced the name wrong. Who works for The Athletic as a Penguins beat writer. JT Miller might come to Pittsburgh someday, but it's not going to be today. A source has confirmed. So it doesn't look like Miller gets moved. Doesn't sound
at
like
least to Pittsburgh.
Yeah, it won't be to Pittsburgh.
So again, though, this is a cap thing. They couldn't be able to make the cap work, or they couldn't get a third team in, which really makes no sense to me because the Arizona Coyotes are still a franchise. But I also got to say this: what prospects do the Penguins have that they could try to make that move?
Well, that's the thing, is that they have. I think I heard they have one of the worst. They have one of the worst prospect pools in the league, and that's because it's similar to what you had just said. They're in the moment. It's all about the Crosby, Letang, and Malkin era. And once that era is going to be done, they're going to be doing a full rebuild because they don't have a choice.
Update on the Kulikov deal. Emily Kaplan just tweeted, deal's almost done per sources. 3rd round pick and a player going to Anaheim in exchange for Kulikov to Pittsburgh.
The other name I saw thrown out from Pittsburgh fans about potentially trading was Jake, or I had seen was Jay Gensel, and I just don't see why the Penguins would trade Jay Gensel.
Yeah, he's another one of those constant pieces. Why would you trade him?
I think the Penguins should next trade for Phil Kessel. Just get the whole band back together from 2016-17.
Well, then you got to get Hagelin from
Carl
Washington.
Hagelin has that eye issue. Is he playing? He's not playing for the Jets.
I don't think he is playing right now. David Pagnota from 5 minutes ago. Further to Florida taking calls on Ratko Gudas. I'm told teams have also called about Sam Reinhart. Doesn't sound like anything's imminent, but the Panthers have been listening. He has 1 more year left on his contract. Bennett has 2 left. I know there's been talk about Bennett too, possibly. These are players that obviously are part of the key. They're somewhat key players on the Panthers. I don't think they have to move like any of these guys because these are like – it's just a weird spot because if you're Florida, what you're trying to make a wild card spot and, you have a lot of talent. Why are you getting rid of some of these guys? It doesn't – I just don't know if that makes sense.
I don't understand where Florida is. But I got to tell you, I put them in a disappointing category this year too. For the way they won the President's Trophy last year. And then, they made the weird decision for my money in getting rid of Andrew Brunette and instead going Paul Maurice. And instead of all that happening, you have this talented team. Then they make the Huberdeau trade for the Chuck, which has worked out. But I just don't – I don't love – like last year I was all Florida. Florida was great. They were fun. This year I feel very differently about them. Part of it's the Huberdeau trade, but part of it is I just don't know if they can find that consistency to their game that they had last year.
How much do you think that this is on the Huberdeau thing? Do you think it's mostly because Huberdeau's gone, or do you think it's like, are we seeing the effects of the difference between one guy walking out the door?
Maybe. Well, I can't say it's because Huberdeau's not there. They also didn't have Anthony Duclair for most of the year. He just came back.
Right. Yeah.
Here's the thing for me on Florida, and this will always be what it comes down to. If Sergei Bobrovsky plays well, they can play well. If Sergei Bobrovsky does not play well, they're screwed.
Mm-hmm.
And listen, that's the part we're at with when it comes to Bob. He's played really well recently, but at any moment he could slip, and we know that.
They really. We're talking about 3-team trades. They really need it. If he ever gets traded, we need someone to take half or at least 25% of that cap hit.
Mm-hmm.
Call the Arizona Coyotes; they'll do it.
Yeah. Pierre LeBrun just tweeted, believe the player going back to Anaheim in the Kulikov trade is Brock McGinn from the Pittsburgh Penguins.
So Brock McGinn in a 3 for Kulikov.
Yeah, so there you go too, because McGinn was waived to, I think they were trying to clear cap space, and then that cap space went towards Granlund. So they've decided to move on from McGinn altogether. They're there.
I got to tell you, the moves Pittsburgh's made, I know they're minor, but to me, it's just like, okay, I've seen what the Devils, Rangers, Tampa, Toronto have done, and we're just going to say, here's what we're going to try to do. Like, to me, the perfect guy Pittsburgh should have gone out to get, and I'm not going to say it would have worked, go get JVR. You know who JVR would have been on that team? JVR on that team would have been what Patrick Hornquist was on those cup-winning teams. That front gives them something.
Here.
So
we're going to see if there was any more. I don't see anything new yet. A couple moves
got almost 90+ minutes.
Yeah, we have a lot. There's been a lot going on.
We've also had a lot that did happen.
Yeah, so that's why I wasn't worried about nothing going on, because we have so much stuff that's already happened. Go ahead.
Also, they got Nick Bonino, the Penguins.
Yeah, which, that worked really, obviously, as well as it could the first time. So
I want to go back to the Granlund thing, though, because I want to talk about the other side. I love what Nashville's doing.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Nashville is doing this the right way. They know they're not going to be a playoff team, even though they're still technically in the wild card race. They're loading up with picks. And they're saying, teams who want picks, come call us. And we'll give up picks, but you're probably going to have to give us some skilled forwards. Which, by the way, I thought the Rangers could have made that deal with Vitaly Kravtsov and say, hey, we'll give you this. We'll take a draft pick back, but didn't happen. But I think Nashville, with these picks, if they can make a big deal or they hit on some of these picks, and they have to hit it forward, they don't have to hit on the back end. If they hit it forward with skill, Nashville's a team to watch over the next couple of years, especially with the news of who's about to be the new GM. Barry Trotz.
That's such an interesting, like someone said what I was thinking when that news came out. Someone was like, I got to get used to looking at him now as a GM and not a head coach anymore. And I'm like, yeah, no, that's exactly my thought process too. I'm just so used to Trotz the coach. And now Poyle is no longer going to be the GM there. He was their first GM ever, which is it's just insane that he's still just the first GM that franchise has ever had.
They've only had 3 head coaches, Nate.
I know.
Trotz, Peter Laviolette, and now John Hines.
Yeah.
They're known as Ketchup Man.
Because it was Poyle and Trotz for the longest time.
Yeah. And Laviolette took him to the Cup final in 16?
17.
16 with Sharks.
Yep. And then Hornquist took a couple shots at his former team, literally. And they were able to win those they were able to win that second cup as part of the back-to-back there. But I want to shift, because I don't think we've talked about this deal specifically yet, and that's the Jacob Chychrun move, which there were a ton of different teams in on him. Arizona for the longest time. It seemed like for 18 months now that Chychrun was on the trading block, and there were teams that were in on him, and Arizona just never budged off of their asking price until what just happened this week. Because I don't have what their original asking price was in front of me, but the deal that ended up happening this on March 1st, a couple days ago, the Senators acquired in the evening of that day Jacob Chychrun, and the Coyotes got a conditional first-round pick in 2023, a conditional second-round pick in 2024, as well as a second-round pick in 2026. So interesting for sure what Arizona actually did get back. 2 of these picks being conditional, which is interesting. And then obviously you have the solid 2026 second-round pick as well. So they get some picks for Chychrun. Thoughts on the move, guys? What do you think about Chychrun joining? Yep.
Well, didn't Mike? Didn't you say earlier that a team offered them 2 first-round picks?
So according to David Pinata, the Kings offered them 2 firsts and a prospect. And
I don't understand. How is this deal that you did with Ottawa better than that deal? It's not.
So, Ottawa took on all the money. That's what a lot of people have said. But,
there are only a select few teams that could take on the entire cap hit of Chychrun, and the Arizona, for whatever reason, they're interesting when it comes to their rules about making trades. We can't take any of Chychrun's cap hit, but we're going to take on the cap hit of Jakub Voracek instead. Like, it's like, why does that matter?
I like the deal for Arizona. You finally get him out of there and finally get this saga over with. I love the deal for Ottawa, though. This is a big move for Ottawa that I think, maybe they start reloading this thing.
I love it from Ottawa's perspective, and I'll get into that in a second. There are no words. Here's how I'm going to describe the Arizona Coyotes. I don't understand why the Coyotes are who they are. You want a new arena in Arizona. Well, what's going to attract people to a new arena? Star players. Jacob Chychrun's a pretty good defenseman. Clayton Keller's a stud. The kid they got who scored the winner in the World Juniors, Dylan Gunther, pretty good player. Will be a good player at some point. This process of just building up picks and dead cap essentially because these guys who don't play for or won't play for you, and you trade away these homegrown guys, it's not a process that should work. Like, this to me is the definition of a tank. And Gary Bettman ain't gonna do a darn thing about it. But here's the part that bothers me. The Coyotes fans are probably great people because they even go to a college arena to go watch this team play. And you put them through suffering. Listen, I remember when the Coyotes last made the playoffs. I think it was 2012 when they went to the Western Conference Finals. This team has gone through a major shift and change. I don't know what their plan is. I see people saying, oh, Austin Matthews is from Arizona. He'll play for the Coyotes. Why? Why is Austin Matthews going to play on the Coyotes?
Yeah, why would he go to Arizona?
Why would Austin Matthews want to sit in 120-degree weather and look at cactuses all day?
Well, okay.
As opposed to going somewhere else.
Their mindset is that he's from there. So, he grew up in I think it was Scottsdale, Arizona. So he'll want to help bring them back to – he'll want to bring them to, back to the playoff team that they were, I think, when, the early 2010s. I mean, that was the last time I think they really –
the last move I remember is them in 2012 playing the Kings in the Western Conference Finals.
So they want Matthews to be the face. And they're like, oh, well, you're the local guy. But
it's not a guarantee.
No, it's not. That you can't I think Bedard's more of a guarantee than Matthews is, and that's not guaranteed either.
Here's the thing. There's a great Simpsons reference I'm going to use for this. There is a scene where, I don't know if Homer gets an iPad, and Marge says to him, "Homie, you're putting all of your eggs into this basket for the iPad." And Homer goes, "What would you want me to do with the eggs? Put one in each basket?" And Marge goes, "You're right. I'm going to take that off the list of things I said. You're pushing all these eggs into this Austin Matthews basket. Tomorrow, Austin Matthews could sign an extension with the Leafs. Or to get Nate's hopes and dreams alive, Austin Matthews could sign a 6-year deal with the Buffalo Sabres."
That's not happening. But
No. But hear me out. I'm saying there are other options outside of Arizona.
Just to correct you, Mike, the last time they were in the playoffs was actually the 2019-2020 season. They won the qualifying round against the Preds and then lost the Avalanche.
I'm not counting the bubble year. I'm not counting it. But that's fine. That's fine. I'll say it was 2012. I could be wrong on that too. My beef with them, I love this from Ottawa's perspective. I love what Ottawa's done.
Oh, yeah.
Chikrin, DeBrincat, Brady Tkachuk, who they drafted. That core is now together. If they can get a long-term goalie, the Ottawa Senators can win a cup.
Well, yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the Ottawa stuff because I have their stats in front of me. Because so many guys on this team could hit 30 goals this year. Brady Tkachuk has 26 right now. Tim Stutzel's 1 away from 30 goals. Claude Giroux, 4 goals away from 30. Alex DeBrincat's been a 40-goal scorer. He's only got 20 this year, but I wouldn't be surprised if next year that dude hits 40 at all. Batherson might be a 20-goal scorer. He's 1 away from that. And these are all young, other than Giroux, these are all younger guys. So this is going to be a core. This is the core that they're going to be going into the future with and eventually probably make the playoffs.
You just said to me the biggest key guy in the history of key guys. Claude Giroux's never won a freaking cup. Why the heck would he want to choose Ottawa? Because he believed in that core. He believed in Pierre Dorion.
Believes in the plan.
Well, there was a plan. And we made fun of Pierre Dorion. Oh, let me rephrase. I made fun of Pierre Dorion for saying there's a plan. There was no plan. But guess what, Pierre Dorion? I tip my hat to you, sir, even though I'm not wearing a hat.
Here is the thing. Ottawa has some form of a plan in place. Maybe they didn't at the start, but they have a plan now with how they want to shape their team. You got to have a plan. And the problem with Arizona is that they have no plan for anything. The new rink, they're at a college right now because they didn't think the whole plan through with getting another place to play. And, they're holding on to Chikrin. They sat him out a bunch of games. They trade him now. They weren't going to budge, which, in my opinion, if you ask me, the longer you hold on to him and you don't make a move and you don't lower your price, the less you're going to get for him because all of a sudden the rest of this year goes by and then he has 2 years left. And are you going to trade him for, it's just that becomes a whole mess. And look, I looked at the calendar. We look at the calendar for this year. It's 2023. I remember back during the 2014-2015 quote-unquote tank year for McDavid and Eichel. There were 3 teams in on that. The Sabres, the Oilers, and the Coyotes. Guess who the Coyotes did not get? McDavid or Eichel. They have been trying to get a star face of the franchise, center forward, however you want to say it, forever. That was almost 10 years ago that they were trying to get McDavid or Eichel. What have they done since?
Nothing. Let's be fair. They have some talent there. Clayton Keller's a player. Dylan Guenther's potential to be a player. The goaltender, Videlmica, however you say it, he's really actually pretty good. But the point is, they've missed on a lot of guys. Dylan Strome, who's now in Washington, he's a pretty good player. He didn't play well in Arizona. A lot of other guys haven't fit in Arizona. The problem is you have to have a culture of winning, or you have to change the culture of what you're building. And Arizona is not a culture of winning. It is a culture of young players, and we wind up moving them when we have to pay them. And that becomes a problem, because then why would free agents go there? Why would guys want to go there when they get drafted? It becomes a cycle, and the people who miss out are the fans. Those are the people who wind up missing out, because at some point, Gary Bettman has to step in and say, look, we can't get you a new arena because you're not helping us at all. What you're doing by stashing these LTIR guys on your salary cap. At some point, you have to put this into the roster. You can't just sit there and just go, oh, we can't do this. We have Shea Weber. We have Chris Pronger. We have Pavel Datsyuk. We have all these guys on our LTIR. But we know those guys aren't playing ever again or in the NHL. But we've come to a point where it has to stop, where you're just burying these guys because you have to get to the cap floor. Spend your damn money. Listen, Arizona, I hear about how hot it is. Make it rain. Don't just wait for Austin Matthews. Make it rain for some other free agent in Arizona. That way the cacti can grow.
Checking right now to see if there's any other news right now. It seems all pretty quiet right now, which is what all of these insiders were like, hey, could you save some of this stuff for the actual day? And
by the way, I want to go. Bill Armstrong, who's the GM of the Coyotes, said, oh, that's how we make these deals earlier so no one watches these shows. Dude, no one watches your team.
Yeah, right.
like, you're playing in a college arena, and you're talking to us about doing live streams and this and that. Go worry about your own team, and then we can have a conversation. I got to be honest with you. I feel bad for the state of Arizona, but I wouldn't care if that team got relegated somewhere else or relocated.
Well, I mean that's been talked about for a while now, and that's what everyone has really been saying on Twitter. I saw some other people mention this too. That it's no offense to the city of Phoenix or Glendale, wherever, or any of the fans. It's just the team. It's not poking at Arizona. It's poking at the organization, like, because the organization is the one that's doing all this stuff.
Right. What? If your goal is not to win games as an owner, why do you own a franchise?
Yep.
Because you think it's cool? You know what? You know who'd be a great hockey owner? Mark Cuban. Mark Cuban could own the Arizona Coyotes.
I do want to, because we talked before about the Jonathan Quick trade, how that whole situation with him going to Columbus and then going to Vegas from the Kings. I wanted to talk about the other couple moves that the Knights have made in the last week or so. We'll start with the one that they made on February 26th. The Vegas acquires Ivan Barbashev, and the Blues acquire Zach Dean. So classic hockey trade. It's a 1-for-1. So Barbashev goes to Vegas. The Blues go for Zach Dean. Barbashev, again, as we mentioned earlier in this stream, one of the three guys that St. Louis was probably moving on from. O'Reilly obviously goes to Toronto, which we mentioned before. Thoughts on Barbashev, first of all, for Vegas? Like the move for their bottom six, I think, is where he's at right at this point.
I like Barbashev as a player. He fits anywhere you want to put him. Top six, bottom six. He's a penalty killer. Maybe you put him on the power play. But it also kind of gives you this idea where if Mark Stone may not come back, and we don't know how serious that back issue is, if Mark Stone doesn't come back, they got a reliable defensive forward here in Barbashev. I'm not saying Barbashev is Mark Stone because no one's Mark Stone, and you could set that in stone or mark it down. But Barbashev gives you some nice grit too. He can play a little bit. He can play He can play physical too. I kind of like it for Vegas. You know what? I gotta tell you, I kind of like what Vegas has done with Jonathan Quick here, Barbashev. You know, David Pinata put out earlier. Maybe they're a team that goes in on JVR. Man, I gotta tell you, Vegas is one of these teams we're not talking about until now. They're sleeper kind of nice right now at this deadline.
Yeah, and then another move that they made March 1st, and then I'm sorry, I didn't cut anybody off. March 1st, Golden Knights also acquired Teddy Bluger from the Penguins, who acquired,
same kind of thing. Bottom six, good on the PK, will help them win faceoffs.
Pittsburgh get Peter Deliberator, and then a third-round pick in 2024. So yeah, but that's another like a depth kind of move for them, where Bluger's really good, Barbashev's good. Quick, we'll see if he, that's what a lot of people were saying the second that Quick goes to Vegas. Man, do people want a Kings Knights playoff series?
Here's David Pinata again. Sounds like a few teams are still in the mix for James Van Riemsdyk. Vegas remains. I wonder about the Avs still and if Minnie's circled back.
That's interesting.
I'll tell you what.
You are on the Avalanche. Be really interesting.
I gotta tell you, unless they know something about Landeskog, to me that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you this: the depth that would create for them would be insane.
Yeah. But who were we talking about before this?
Vegas.
Oh yeah, Vegas. Yeah, no. It's just like we got to talk about other things. No, I mean I'm with you, Mike. Vegas. I mean they're top of the division right now, tied for top in their division. They've been really good this entire year. And now they add, a good backup goalie in Jonathan Quick. They add some decent pieces here and there. You're right. I think Vegas is one of those teams that we're not talking about them enough. And they could be big come April and May.
And look, I know people are going to say, oh, they're at the top of the Western Conference. But the Western Conference, I know it's not as loaded as the East, but you still got Colorado, who, by the way, Jared Bednar deserves a lot of consideration for Coach of the Year. The job he's done with all those injuries. Dallas is really good. Winnipeg's really good. LA's really good. I'm going to say, even though I don't trust them, the Oilers are good.
Mm-hmm.
Let me rephrase that. Connor McDavid and friends are good.
Connor McDavid and friends.
That's how you got to refer to the Oilers. I'm sorry.
I mean, it's true. It is very true.
But yeah, so we'll see what happens with Vegas. How they do in the playoffs and everything like that. We talked about the Avs. Obviously won the Cup last year. Possibly a team in on JVR. Apparently, they did make a move back on the 1st of March. They got Lars Eller, the guy who officially he got the Stanley Cup winning goal in the game-deciding game for the Caps against the Vegas Golden Knights back in 2018. Lars Eller goes to the Colorado Avalanche, and the Capitals get a second-round pick in 2025. And this is really interesting. They retain 31% of Eller's salary. Wow, how did they come up with 31% of his salary? It's just
I gotta tell. I don't know how they come. The number should be 25, 50, 75. Let's go real numbers here. 31%. But listen, I like the Lars Eller deal for Colorado. I don't think he can give them everything Nazem Kadri did, because I still think they're missing on that second line. But he's a consolation for a third line center. and he's great on the PK. He'll win important faceoffs. He's not going to score a ton of goals, but he's a really important player on a really good team. That's what he was for the Capitals. He was an important piece. So, listen, if you can get a Lars Eller, you take a Lars Eller, because Lars Eller, listen, everyone can talk about the McDavids and the McKinnons. The Lars Ellers of the world, those are the guys who win you Stanley Cups.
Mm-hmm.
It's not always the superstar.
Very true. And you mentioned about, well, first of all, because I know we're flying through all these different trades. Any final thoughts on this before I move to the next move? Because I just want to.
Okay.
Go ahead. No.
Just real quick, we have an update from Pagnata. JVR follow-up. Minnesota and Winnipeg are out. Told Colorado is there, and it's now down to Colorado, Vegas, and Seattle.
Oh, boy. I'll tell you that. You know what? You know what? This, and then I'll give a final thought. Seattle, do it. Seattle, pull the trigger.
I can see that.
You got to believe. Ron, it's not the sexy move, Ron Francis, but you got to give this team something because they played so well this year. Pull the trigger, Ron Francis. Pull it. We're all
fire. Take the shot.
Pull it, Ron. But back to Eller. Nate, we recorded the podcast that night when Bo Horvat got traded. And I had said to you when I did the Vancouver Canucks statement interest, I thought Bo Horvat was destined for Colorado.
Yeah.
So this is a decent consolation prize for them.
Yeah, well, because as you said, they needed to find the replacement for Kadri, and now they finally have that in Eller, and I think it's definitely a very good consolation prize for them. And we'll see if how they're able to turn it on once come playoff time, because I know that they haven't had as explosive as a year as many people thought. I mean, they did just come off of winning the cup, so that it is what it is. I feel like you got to give them a little bit of slack, but once the postseason comes, look out, because they're going to be hungry to repeat for sure. All right, another name that I wanted to talk about, and we just obviously talked about Colorado. We'll stick with the Western Conference. We're going to go to the Edmonton Oilers, because they made a move last day of February on the 28th. They acquired Matthias Ekholm and a 6th-round pick for Tyson Barrie, Reed Schaefer, 1st-round pick in 2023, and a 4th-round pick, all going to the Nashville Predators. So, and I got to say, I saw the highlights of Ekholm when he played his first game as an Oiler in Edmonton. It was very weird. It was very, very weird, because I'm so used to Ekholm. I mean, he's played his entire career, been there forever. I don't know when he first started playing for Nashville, but I mean, when you think of the Predators, I mean, especially because the Preds are known for their strong defensive teams. You go back to the days of Shea Weber and Ryan Suter, and Roman Josi is the captain there for the Preds. They had PK Subban for that cup run.
Who played with Ekholm?
And it's Ryan Ellis, obviously, before he went to Philly, and he's been hurt a lot. They've just had a lot of great, solid defensemen, and Ekholm was a part of that, especially part of that run to the Cup final. And now, first of all, big guy that you're adding on the back end for Edmonton. This is one of my favorite moves, just because I've always had respect for all of the defensemen that have played for the Nashville Predators pretty much.
Ekholm was drafted in the 4th round in 2009.
Yeah, so he's been there quite a bit, quite a long time. The years are flying by, but it's been a long time. And he's providing some nice depth. Obviously, Barrie had his fans there in Edmonton, but you're adding this big guy in Ekholm, who is going to be a force, and it's going to be I think it's going to be a great addition to a team that obviously Connor McDavid and friends. McDavid's having just another phenomenal season. What a surprise. Another news, water's wet. McDavid with 52 goals. Actually, this is the I guess somewhat newsworthy, because this is the first season, I believe, and I'm going to correct myself if I'm wrong about this, where McDavid's actually hit 50 goals. He has never hit 50 goals
He's
before.
never hit 50.
This is the first time. Yeah, and he because he hit 41 back-to-back years, 2017, 2018, and then 18-19. He had 41 goals for that. He had 44 last year, which is his new career high, and now he is officially a member of a 50-goal club.
And he's probably going to hit 60.
Definitely.
He's
it was Matthews
60.
last year. It was Matthews who hit 60 last year. It looks like McDavid will hit 60 this year. He has 66 assists right now as this stream is happening right now. All of this in 62 games. He has 118 points. So,
and he's running away with not only the Art Ross, but he's probably going to win the Hart.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we're just absolute. I mean, are we that surprised ever since this guy was in the OHL and everyone was saying he'll be the next Crosby and everything like that? I mean, he's
taken it to another level.
He's played how he did in juniors now. All of those when he was with the Erie Otters in the OHL and he was making all these other junior players miss and all this other stuff and look ridiculous. He's doing those exact same highlights now, and it is absolutely so much fun to watch. And I wish there were more McDavid games on nationally, because he is the face of your team, and he needs to be shown more prominently as a result. He is the best player in the game, and he is the face of the league.
Is that due to like a sports net deal or something?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. That would make sense. But everyone's been wondering, why can't I not watch McDavid more often? He is the face of your league. You would think the NHL would be like, hey, we need to get let's get NBC to get some games. Not NBC. Let's get ESPN or TNT to get some games. I'm used to NBC being the guy, the people that
and
have had
actual games, not just clinics against the Coyotes. Man, I'm railing on the Coyotes.
You are railing on the Coyotes.
This really just became
back to Ekholm, though. I mean, everyone said they were looking for a puck-moving defenseman. That's what everyone's saying. That's why they were in on Carlson. That's why they were in on this guy or that guy. They were in on Carlson. So Mattias Ekholm gives them a nice puck-moving defenseman. He'll eat top 4 minutes. And he'll be sound defensively because he played in Nashville.
Yeah.
But there's something about the Oilers that makes me wonder. And it comes back to this. I don't trust the goaltending, whether it's Stuart Skinner or Jack Campbell. I don't trust them. And who are you going to take in a big game? Stuart Skinner and Jack Campbell or Jonathan Quick? I'll take Jonathan Quick.
Well, he definitely has the experience.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, you look right now, and I mean, everything's pretty even, I guess, to an extent. But you look at the net minding duo of Skinner and Campbell, and you just paid a ton of money to Jack Campbell as a free agent. And he's only started 29 games for you this year. Stuart Skinner has started 33.
And he's put up actually pretty good numbers, but
right. But the thing,
playoffs are a different animal.
But I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about how you paid so much money for Campbell to be your guy, and he's not even the guy. And 1 year of that contract hasn't even flown by, and he's already not playing in as many games as Stuart Skinner. I don't know if there were injuries or anything like that, but so I guess that's a loophole in that whole theory. But it's just, you expected so much more out of this with Campbell going to Edmonton, and it just hasn't been what we expected it to be. Now, granted, you're going to also have Leaf fans or other hockey fans that are going to say, oh, well, Campbell wasn't worth that contract. That's why Toronto didn't keep him around. And that's fair. That's a fair point.
And it worked for the Leafs last year with Campbell because they have the talent to outscore everyone, as does Edmonton. But at the end of the day, that's not going to win you the cup. You don't win by just outscoring your opponents. You have to play some form of defense.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, and you can't just rely on McDavid and Draisaitl to carry your team. You need other things.
Oh.
The Sharks have officially announced the Bonino trade. It is a 3-team trade, believe it or not.
Oh.
So
if it's the Coyotes, I'm swearing.
It's not the Coyotes. It's Pittsburgh gets center Nick Bonino. San Jose gets defenseman Arvid Hendrickson, a 2023 7th-round pick, a 2024 5th-round pick. Montreal gets defenseman Tony Sund, a 2024 5th-round pick, and the Habs will retain 50% of the Bonino deal.
Okay. Arvid Hendrickson and Tony Sund. Excellent names.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent names.
So, yeah, a 3-team trade between Pittsburgh, San Jose, and Montreal.
I wonder if Tony Sund loves Capri Sun. This is the kind of content we're giving out.
No, these are the questions we need answered.
Questions. This is from Tariq El Bashir. Connor Sheary is on the ice for practice in San Jose. For those interested in such things, #caps. So we're still waiting on a couple of deals to go down.
Even with like Bonino, it's like I just expected that to be a 1-team trade, and then all of a sudden, it's 3-way. But all right, I'm going to step away for like a minute. I will be right back.
So I got it. You can go do what you got to do. So I've got on Hockey Central trade deadline, but they're talking Calgary, who's one of those teams we haven't really hit on yet. So let's hit on Calgary a little bit. Although if you get too close, you might get burned. But this is another team. Like, I don't think they're going to tinker a whole lot because there's been nothing building there. But this is another team that was so good last year. Then Edmonton went right through them in the second round.
Yeah, it was bad. And
this year they haven't found that same level of consistency. So I'm kind of wondering what they're going to do here with about an hour. And we're about an hour away from the deadline.
Yeah, they haven't done anything. And I'm going to look at some trades that they could make. I mean,
yeah, I know Nate had talked about the possibility of maybe an Elias Lindholm going to Carolina, or the fact that Calgary could sell. I just wonder if they're going to sell, do you just blow this whole thing up and just start it from scratch? Or do you still feel you're on the surface of something big? Because the Chuck trade and Goudreau leaving in free agency, I think, has done this team horrors. But
yeah, because here's the thing. We all thought that them trading Tkachuk but getting Huberdeau and Mackenzie Weegar were gonna like, oh, good. You replace them, you got Nazem Kadri and all this stuff, and it's like, okay, you're on the up and up. Huberdeau, I don't know about you, Mike. Huberdeau, for me, has had a very disappointing year in Calgary. He's got 59 games played. He's only got 40 points, 12 goals, 28 assists. This was supposed to be like one of your leaders of the team. Nazem Kadri, 21 goals, 24 assists for 45 points in 62 games. So he's been okay. He's been, I think, what you wanted, a solid center. Elias Lindholm's been really good, but your big guy has been Tyler Toffoli out of nowhere. 62 games played, 53 points, 25 goals, 28 assists.
Yeah, I don't know what Toffoli's been good. Mangiapane and Dubé have been giving what they can to a certain extent. But this team, to me, Daryl Sutter wants to play this game 2-1, 3-2. And this team needs more goal scoring. They need to find a way. And to be a little bit critical, Jacob Markstrom's not having the year he had last year either. So Calgary has to find a balance somewhere, or they could say, you know what?
Yeah,
I don't know if you could blow this thing up because you did just trade for Huberdeau and you just signed Kadri, but you could say, you know what? Let's punt on 2023 for a second.
Yeah,
and we can make
try
some
to retool
moves
this
here, and we focus for 2024.
Just to your point, Mike, Markstrom has a 2.93 goals against average with a 0.889 save percentage.
Yeah, anything under 900
is not good.
Excuse me, is not good. It's not good, especially for the money when you're what they're paying Markstrom, and they're paying
exactly
good money.
Yeah, and I think I agree with your assessment there. I think you simply punt this season. I think you punt this season away, and I think you've got to retool this for next year. Because if you look at the previous season, okay, let's look at their 2021-2022 season. Mm-hmm. You had Gaudreau and Tkachuk. They were your two top scorers. They both scored 100 points, and they're both gone. And we thought you would get that with Huberdeau, but Huberdeau, 45 points when, let me check. Last year he had 115 for Florida. He had 30 goals, and he's got 12 so far this year. So, like I said, I knew a lot of people thought, I believe Nate was one of them, that they were getting great deal for Tkachuk and Gaudreau, but it just hasn't worked out. Oh, there he is. He confirmed this.
What am I confirming?
Moser, you had a lot of faith in Calgary, right? That they got a lot of decent trade value back for Tkachuk and Gaudreau, right?
Well, Gaudreau they lost. They just flat out lost.
Okay, but for Tkachuk
this is what Calgary got back.
Yeah.
I liked the move for Calgary getting Huberdeau and Weegar. Like those two were like, especially like first of all, Weegar on like a defense that already has like Hannafin and like some of the other pieces that are over there. I thought that was a great addition. I thought Weegar was going to fit in perfectly well, and I have to look at his stats, but I think he's actually done pretty well for Calgary. But there was another thing where I thought Huberdeau was going to, would be a great move. Now, Huberdeau hit 100 points last year with Florida. Were we expecting him to hit 100 points again? Probably not.
But go from 115 points to, so far we have 20 games left, he's only got 45.
Yeah, I would want him in the 70s.
Yeah,
that's a massive
at least.
He should be able to hit 80 points.
Right, and here's where I'm at, because I mentioned this to Noah before. It's Daryl Sutter wants to play 2-1, 3-2. That's how he's always been. This team kind of needs a little bit more offense, and they don't get it often. But they play tight to the vest, and they haven't gotten the saves from Jacob Markstrom that they desperately need at times. But to me, I'm at the point where maybe you just punt on the year. I know they're close in the wild card. Maybe you just punt on this year and you focus on next year. I know they're close, so in the wild card, but
and then all of a sudden you hear rumors about, like I said, I mean, whether it actually happens, who knows, because rumors are rumors, and until anything's actually confirmed. But this idea that they might like move Lindholm, like Elias Lindholm, which again I've seen maybe like a reunion in Carolina, which would be interesting. It's just, but why are you getting rid of Lindholm? I mean, he's a young guy. I mean, he's not super old, and I mean, he's one of the best forwards you have. So why are you making that? Granted, I mean, I don't know what the deal would look like. I don't know what they would be getting back, but they're probably not getting enough back that they would need to go forward. I mean, I just think that I wouldn't be trying to get rid of him personally.
So this is from Tom Gliddy of NHL.com, I believe.
Yeah,
NHL
Convaleschi.
back. Winnipeg will be Vlad Nemestikov's 8th team since the start of 2019-2020.
Yeah, they said that he's the new Mike Sillinger.
Yeah. So those teams are the Rangers, the Senators, the Avalanche, the Red Wings, the Stars, the Lightning, the Sharks, and the Jets. And the Sharks just got him 2 days ago. And he's been moved for a 4th-round pick in 2025. That is finalized.
I remember when he was in that when he was in the Ranger Tampa trade. It was McDonough, wasn't it?
That was McDonough and JT Miller.
Yeah. I think there was a point where like Nemestikov was playing with like Stamkos or something like that, and it's just like, wow, like that's really cool that like worked out that he got to be on that line, and all of a sudden he's just gone.
Mm-hmm.
Looking to see here.
Waiting on more stuff to come down, but
I mean, well, I want to talk about then quickly a trade that occurred last night that we haven't gotten to yet. And that's the big one from Dallas. And that's Max Domi going to the Stars in exchange for Anton Khudobin, hero of a cup final run a few years ago.
Yeah,
and
the bubble run.
What's that? The bubble run, yeah.
Bubble run.
And now the Blackhawks trade Max Domi and goalie Dylan Wells in exchange for goalie Anton Khudobin and a 2nd-round pick in the 2025 draft. Now, Domi was leading the Blackhawks in points this year, which is crazy to think about on a roster with Patrick Kane and Jonathan Toews. But, I mean, talk about – I'm surprised that Dallas was willing to let Khudobin go, but I mean, I guess with the rise of Jay Ottinger, that is an easier move to do, and you get a really, really good forward in Max Domi, who so far this year, 18 goals, 31 assists for 49 points in 60 games. And I mean, you throw him on that line with Hintz, or you throw him on that team with Hintz and Robertson and Joe Pavelski. This, other than the Timo Meier trade, Mike, this might be my favorite of the entire deadline.
I know for me, looking at this with putting Domi basically on this team, I'm looking at the stats right now for Dallas, and I mean Jason Robertson, who they just re-signed. I mean, there was the fact that there was even talk about him possibly getting traded, I think is laughable because of how talented of a guy he is. 62 games, 35 goals, 41 assists, 76 points in 62 games played. Rupe Hintz is about to hit 30 goals. Jamie Benn's got 25. Joe Pavelski has 53 points in 62 games. I mean, I got to check Pavelski's age, but I know that he's getting up there. And that's not even talking about contributions from Heiskanen on the blue line, Tyler Seguin. Domi is joining a pretty talented club, in their own right, and I think that Domi should be a nice addition on the offense for them. And of course, we know it. I think he brings a little bit of physicality as well, not as much as his dad did. His dad fought people, but I still think that. With Max and everything else that they got going on there, I think that they're definitely a team to watch for sure.
I think you said the key name in all of this, though. The resurrection of Jamie Benn, whose offense has been down the past couple of years, has been what this team really needed, because we talked about them coming into the year. They needed more out of Jamie Benn, and they need more out of Tyler Seguin, and they've gotten more out of both of them. So now you bring in Max Domi, who, again, similar to Barbashev, you could play him in the top 6, you could play him in the bottom 6, however you want to go about it. He'll give you some offense, but he'll also give you some of the nasty stuff. And as you mentioned, he's not his dad. He's more offensive than his dad.
Yeah,
but he's not afraid
a little bit of physical stuff too, doesn't he? I mean,
no, he provides it. So this team gives you really, they have four lines who can roll, whether it's offensively, they can play physical if you need them to be. I still would like to see them add one more piece. Noah mentioned the teams who are in on JVR. That wouldn't be a bad spot for them. I'd also maybe like to see them add again. My big thing at the trade deadline is always you can never have enough defensemen. If Dallas would like to add a defenseman, I'd have no beefs with it at all. Because again, we talk about how the East is an arms race. The West is really good too when you're talking Dallas, Colorado, Vegas, LA, Connor McDavid and friends. These teams are all going to – Minnesota, I haven't even mentioned Minnesota, but again, that's a one-man team with Kaprizov. But these are all teams who are going to duke it out in the playoffs and be like, put them up. And Dallas has as much of a chance as anybody. So,
yeah, still looking here.
Still waiting for more.
Waiting for other things.
I feel like everything took place before the deadline this year. And it's like, yeah, now there's no moves left.
I'll tell you this. If there's not a deal done for James Van Riemsdyk, this is a massive failure on the Flyers.
Yeah.
Mainly because I think the Flyers have 4 or 5 names who I think you can move off of on their roster right now, and people be okay with it. And if they wind up with nothing and standing pat, that's a bad look.
One trade that I want to talk about that happened today, actually, it happened this morning, was the trade that happened between the Detroit Red Wings and the St. Louis Blues. So there was a lot of speculation about whether Vrana was done playing for Detroit, and that is officially now the case. Vrana goes to the Blues, and the Red Wings acquire a 7th-round pick in 2025, and they also retain 50% of Vrana's salary. So
Vrana gets a nice restart in St. Louis. Steve Yzerman again frees up some cap space. He's got 45 minutes to work. I'm putting nothing past the Red Wings here.
And the thing with like Vrana is like, I mean, I still remember, I got here, it was the tail end of his career with the Caps before he went to Detroit. He was part of that Mantha trade. And Vrana he's built for today's game because he's got the speed and he's got the hands, and some of the goals that he was scoring for Washington was so impressive. And I just remember when he got traded to Detroit, and I'm like, oh, geez, they're going to miss him because, he was such a spectacular player. And obviously Detroit, liked him to an extent and stuff like that. And
we've got a deal, Nate.
All right.
David Pinata, Minnesota's trading Jordan Greenway to Buffalo.
Really?
So Jordan Greenway to Buffalo. Do not know the return yet. Nate, so here's the deal. Nate is a Sabres fan, and he has been nonstop complaining about Kevin Adams in our group chat for doing nothing. I'm airing this out now. This is a move that can work because he fits the timeline of which the Sabres could go at.
Yeah.
This is depending on what's going back to Minnesota.
Right.
Which we'll wait on. But I don't hate this from the Sabres. It gives them some size.
Yeah, well, that's so okay. So basically, while I've been looking at all these different things on Twitter, one thing that Granato, because the Sabres had a practice today, Dahlin's officially back because he was missing a couple days. I don't know if he's going to play tomorrow. I don't know if they're just kind of having him practice, testing out I don't know if it's a leg injury or whatever, but Granato had some comments. Basically, I have them in front of me because I sent them to a friend of mine. Don Granato, now is not the time to be impatient. We've made massive growth. We're building our team now without sacrificing our future. Okay. So I guess it's interesting to see what we gave up for this, considering the fact that they probably didn't want it. Maybe it's just a pick. But Greenway, yeah, I mean, Greenway is a guy who you look at his age. I mean, not that long ago, he was a prospect. I mean, I think he played relatively quickly for Minnesota.
So Pinata goes 2 draft picks going to Minnesota. Don't have the picks yet, but it's 2 draft picks going back to the Wild.
Okay, so looking at his stats right now, he's 26. So what draft? He was part of the 2015 draft. Okay, so he kind of fits that age group where, because Tage is only a year younger than he is, he's 25. He's a left winger, which is nice.
Gives him size too.
Gives him size. He has not put up the numbers offensively this year. 45 games played. He only has 2 goals and 5 assists. Maybe he needs a change of scenery. Last year, he put up decent numbers. His best overall year, though, was in 2020, 2021. He had 6 goals, but he also had 26 assists. So it sounds like he's going to be nice. He's a nice depth add. We're talking bottom 6 where he's going to have a role. So I like it. I like the move. Greenway has always been talked about, I think, as a guy who the Sabres maybe could go after as like a depth piece and stuff like that. His name's been tied to them in the past, but it's interesting that we're able to get him. So
this is from Elliot Friedman. Greenway's coach on under 18 team years ago was Dom Granado. So they know each other there.
There is that had happened with Tage, because Tage was I think Renato, I don't know if he was the head coach or if he was an assistant coach for the development team for like a couple years, and that was a team in 2015 where or one of those years we're talking Matthews was there, Matthew Tkachuk I believe was there, and then you had Tage. Tage was also there, and so Granato knew Tage from that time. And one thing that, and this goes back to the Stillman acquisition, we got Riley Stillman a couple days ago. Get Granato's hands on some of these players, because look what he did with Tage. Look what he's done with Dahlin. Look what he's done with Tuck. Tuck is, once Tuck comes back, I don't think he's missing the rest of the year. He's 2 goals away from 30. No one ever thought Tuck was going to be a 30-goal scorer with what he was doing in Vegas. Granted, Vegas had a role.
He's not playing top-line minutes in Vegas.
Yeah, well, that's why that was the one thing that I didn't love about the Stone deal when they got him, because I am a Tuck fan. But, but Tage all of a sudden is able to put up 40 goals. Almost did it last year. Has more than that this year. Possibly could hit 50. So, I'm interested to see what Granato can do for Greenway.
So this is from Shayna Goldman. Sounds like Oscar Sundqvist is heading to the Wild. So maybe a third team's involved here, which would be Detroit. I think that's where Sundqvist is now. But
take a look at Sundqvist. I just want to make sure here. Sundqvist.
But listen, Minnesota's a weird team too.
They've been kind of weird. I still remember when I think we were doing our podcast then, and we talked about Granlund going to Pittsburgh. But you talk about Granlund going to Nashville, and then Fiala was the guy who went to Minnesota. Now Fiala's in with the Kings, but that was a weird move.
That's because of the cap issue, because the $7 million buyouts of Suter and Parisi.
But then they wanted to go get like Kessel from Pittsburgh, and it's just like.
Yeah. So this is from Darren Drager. Sounds like Detroit is joining Seattle in a push for JVR. Traction developing of late. Oh boy,
it's not Detroit.
I told you Steve Yzerman had something up his sleeve.
Detroit in for JVR. Interesting.
Oh, Seattle, if you don't do it, I'm going to be right if Detroit gets it, but Seattle, you're going to regret this.
Seattle, don't make Rifkin angry. Don't want to make the list.
You know what happens, Seattle, when I get angry? I don't drink Starbucks.
No, we don't do Starbucks around here.
Actually, I don't do coffee, so
I don't do coffee either, Mike. You and I are on the same page.
So Nate, it's the Sabres are sending a 2023 second, and it looked like a 2024 fifth.
Okay, 2024 fifth.
Pinata had that too. He was just on the NHL Network screen, but I missed it. A 2024 fifth and a 2023 second. No salary retained.
And with the Sabres, that's okay. So one of those, the Sabres had 3 picks in the second round for the 2023 draft. So now they only have 2. So because a lot of people were saying, you have 3 second-round picks. Go use one of those for something. Before Max Domi went to Dallas, that was a move that a buddy of mine and I had talked about. You have 3 seconds. Go trade one of those for Domi. Like, imagine Domi is like a bottom 6 guy for us or something, to make a push. But, whether he fits the age range or not on that. But, so there we go. So there we go. 2024 fifth and a 2023 second-round pick.
And the Capitals have announced they've re-signed Nicolas Aube-Kubel to a 1-year extension.
Good for Aube-Kubel because, look, he won a cup last year, which I'm very happy that he was able to do that.
And he dented it.
He did dent it. Did he dent it that night?
Yeah, he dropped it on the ice.
Oh, geez. Well, look, the amount of things the Cups has gone through in its existence. But yeah, I think I'm trying to remember. I think Michael Ryder did that too when the Bruins won the Cup. I think he literally dropped it in a pool.
Oh, talk about a dude who was really good and then just fell off. Michael Ryder.
Well, I think he just got old. He was in Montreal forever, and then I think he went to Boston.
He went to Dallas or something.
He did go to Dallas. Yeah, there wasn't a Ryder and Peverly or something.
Something like that. And then Christopher Higgins was another one in Montreal, and then he went to the Rangers and just didn't do much. But so, according to Darren Drager, the Buffalo second-round pick is the Vegas one they got in the Eichel deal.
Okay.
So where that could be in the second round, you're talking the bottom of the second round. So that's actually pretty good value if you're a Sabre fan or a lightsaber fan.
Lightsaber fan. Second. I'm just checking certain things out here. Then we could go through the list of other trades that have happened.
Well, again, David Pinata on NHL Network talking Flames and Panthers selling potentially. Calgary's 5 points out of a wild card spot, and they're talking about selling. And they're 7 points out of third place in the Pacific.
Interesting.
So, I don't know what Calgary's selling, but it must not be that hot. Dude, I'm gonna use the hockey puns while we're on.
You're firing off with the puns today.
I'm firing it up, lighting it off fire.
It doesn't get much better than this.
Might be March, but I'm setting the heat.
I totally forgot that when we were talking about the Oilers, I totally forgot about the Bjugstad trade. So the Oilers, yes, this move happened yesterday. They acquired Nick Bjugstad and Cam Dineen, and Arizona gets as a result a 3rd-round pick in 2023, Michael Kesselring, and they retain 50% of Bjugstad's salary.
I don't know who Michael Kesselring is. I don't care about the 3rd-round pick. Arizona, stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it with the retaining salaries. Stop it with paying players who are on LTIR and will never play for you to set a cap floor. Let's build a real franchise. I will send you Nate's copy of NHL 23. and you can learn to build a franchise that way.
Okay. We're
Like,
bringing up you
geez.
playing Hut, like Hut.
No, fantasy draft it up. Let's go.
So someone pointed out they updated the Eichel deal now that because that's Vegas's pick. So basically, right now, as it stands right now in the Eichel deal, Sabres gave up Eichel and a third-round pick, and what they've gotten back as a result is Alex Tuck, Peyton Krebs, Noah Ostlund, who's in Sweden right now, but he was a first-round pick last year, and Jordan Greenway. So that's quite a bit.
And listen, it's actually a deal that's kind of worked out for both sides because Jack Eichel's having a very nice year in Vegas.
Yeah, because he broke his thumb earlier in the year. He had 2 goals the other night, so he came back.
He had a thumb issue earlier in the year. He's had a very nice year. And let's be honest, he was called out by Bruce Cassidy at one point, and he's really turned it on since that point. And that team has changed a little bit because the Stone injury, but to go back to something you said, Nate, about Jacob Vrana, how the Caps miss him, the Caps also miss Chandler Stevenson, who's been really good for Vegas at points as well.
You're right.
So
now we go back to waiting.
And we're waiting.
This is from Shayna. I don't have a first.
Shayna Goldman.
Goldman. Is it the Oscar Sundquist deal?
Yep, sounds like Oscar Sundquist heading to the Wild.
So that would be Detroit's move, I guess, to free up more cap if they're really in on JVR.
Yeah.
Darren
Drager, I guess, kind of confirms that by saying good scoop.
I feel like the Sabres are going to make one more move because they have Vinny Hinostroza, who has spent most of the year in Rochester. And I know he's been up because of the Tuck injury, but I don't know if this is going to change that up because I know that they were trying to trade Hinostroza before and they didn't really get any takers for him. There's just no room for him. I mean, he was a fan favorite or locker room favorite, and there are too many guys with some of these younger guys. So I'm curious to see because you bring Greenway and that's another forward. So I'm curious if Hinostroza, they do get a deal for him, or what they end up doing if he ends up going to Rochester again after.
I'll throw one more name at you, Nate. What about Zemgus Girgensons?
I don't know if they're going to try to bring him back. I've seen people say maybe you keep Oposo and Girgensons. I'm happy that they've been leaders for the team. I really feel like we could probably go in another direction. But I'm also not going to be upset if they bring them both back either.
So this is from Scott Powers, who covers the Blackhawks. Luke Richardson today on Max Domi potentially coming back over the summer. I'm quoting, absolutely. I told him I'd love him to come back, but we have to see what we end up with and what kind of prospect pool is coming in and who's available in the summer. But I think he's shown he's fit in here really well, close quote. So the door's not shut on Max Domi potentially going back to Chicago, but I'm not going to sit here and tell you that it's definitely going to happen. But also, while we're waiting, can I go off on something? Do I have that kind of time?
Yep. Yeah. Yes, we have a lot of time still.
So last night during the Rangers-Ottawa Senators game, Senators forward Austin Watson got called for a charging penalty when he ran and elbowed Tyler Mott in the head. Tyler Mott didn't return to the game. NHL players or Department of Player Safety has announced there will be no hearing for Austin Watson. They thought the hit was clean. If you go back and watch the hit, and this is for every person who's ever bagged on a Jacob Trouba hit, this is worse because the guy didn't come back, and this was a straight elbow to the head, and this was a charge. I need to know from player safety, and I hope people at player safety are watching the live stream. George Paris, I'm talking to you. I still hope you have that great mustache, though. I want to know the rules. What are your standards here for what is and what isn't deemed clean? I think the fans deserve to know this because I'm confused. Other people are confused. If it's a 5-minute major deemed by the referees in the Situation Room in Toronto, how is there not supplementary discipline here? I get it. If it's 2 minutes, it's 2 minutes. But it was 5 minutes. It was deemed a 5-minute major in a game misconduct. What are your standards here, George? I want to know. Can you show me? Something strangers like me.
I knew that's where you were going.
Exactly. Tarzan references. All right, Nate. The Sabres made another deal, it looks like.
Yeah, it's a minor league trade.
The minor league deal. All right. Austin Strand sent to Anaheim for Chase Prisky.
Yes.
Oh, man. Chase Prisky. What a name.
Yes. Yeah, so I
know a good nickname for him.
But, all right. Listen there. I got to say, Sabres have been active. This is the second trade they've made today. They made one yesterday. They made one a few days ago. That was how we got Corey Stillman's son, Riley, on the defense. So
defense that could have used some help last night. 7 to the Bruins.
Well, a lot of those were empty nets, though.
Were they? Okay.
I did not watch a ton of the game, but a lot of people said it really the final score should have been like 3-0 or 3-1. Started to pull the goal. They pulled the goalie with like 5 minutes left in the third when they were down. Like
to quote dodgeball, that's a bold strategy there, Cotton.
So it was like, I don't know if it was like 3-0 or 3-1 at that point, and like they pulled him. They got the goal, so it was 3-1, and then they like pulled it. The goalie, it was 4-1, and then I think in the last few minutes the Sabres just kind of. I don't know. I don't want to say they stopped trying. Again, I didn't watch, but I heard a lot of people said that the team basically quit on Luukkonen at the end, and Luukkonen was basically let high and dry in like the last 5 minutes of the game. Heard it was a great game. Otherwise, they kept it close for most of the game. It just the last few minutes they kind of just let a ton in.
This is from Darren Drager. Detroit is getting a pick for Oscar Sundqvist.
I think does Sportsnet have this up yet about the Sundqvist trade? Actually, no, they don't. Not
yet. Drager basically confirmed it, so I did confirm
it. Yeah, so you can hear. Yeah. Okay. So this is an important thing that needs to be pointed out is that for the Greenway move because I just see that seeing the stat about this because one of the things that the Sabres needed was physicality because we were like one of like the least teams that hits in the entire league. I don't know where we are statistically. I just know that they're one of the least hitting teams. There's someone, the Royal Report, who is the Sabres account. For the crowd that cares about that stuff, Greenway already leads Sabres in hits this season with 79. So this is a guy who brings physicality, 6'6". So, I mean, he's got size. So that's, the hits were one of the things we needed a little bit more of a physicality aspect. So that's cool to see that's part of it.
I also wonder if when Minnesota got Ryan Reeves, that kind of felt like pushes Jordan Greenway out of the way because Ryan Reeves brings that physical, like grittiness that you want.
Well, Ryan Reeves is a fan favorite wherever he goes.
Oh, Ryan Reeves. Listen, I'll tell you this. Ryan Reeves was a great Ranger.
Great Ranger. I think Vegas really liked him too when he was there.
Yeah, so. the Blues liked him. But listen, when you come in at a decent contract, you're going to be vulnerable to be moved.
All right, so Drager just now Dryden Hunt to Calgary for Radim Sahorna first with it. He gives credit to Shayna Goldman. So
Dryden Hunt. So that is really bottom 6 depth move.
yeah. Alrighty. I wanted to one thing that because we talked about the O'Reilly trade, but we didn't talk about I think there was a point where literally Toronto made like 3 trades in a row, and I'm just like all at like in the span of like, let me look at this. Yeah, it was all in the span of like an hour. They literally made like 3 trades. This was back on February 28th. So we'll go in order based on the times that these were, I guess, announced, because Sportsnet literally has the times on here that these were completed. I give them a lot of credit. They're doing a really good job helping us out. Shout out to Sportsnet for their trade tracker. Great job, and they're pretty accurate with updating too. So the first move that the Leafs made on February 28th, they made with the Washington Capitals. So Rasmus Sandin, who was a first-round pick, I believe in 2018, but don't quote me on that. But he's been a defenseman for them for a few years now. He gets traded to Washington. Eric Gustafsson comes back from Washington, goes to Toronto, and Washington also gives up their first-round pick in this year's draft. So Gustafsson in a first to Toronto for Rasmus Sandin. Thoughts, first of all, I guess, on this trade?
I mean, Gustafsson was having a nice year for Washington. So Toronto gets a – I like this deal for Washington. I like Sandin.
Did you question the first-round pick being thrown in there? Was that one of the ones you didn't know?
I don't like Washington giving up a first-round pick. I think if you're in a position Washington is where – not that they're rebuilding, but they're kind of got to do this thing on the fly because you made a promise to Ovi that while he's in a Caps uniform, you're going to try to contend. That's where I question throwing in a first, because you need to listen. You're going to draft, you're going to develop, and you have to make smart trades. Sandin's a nice player, and you could still think there's seasoning there. I just don't love giving up a first, although I think it's a conditional first.
It didn't say that. No, it's just a first, because it has if they're conditional on here. It didn't say anything about a conditional here.
Oh, we've got. Just real quick, Pagnana and Freeman both confirming hearing JVR to Detroit.
Steve Yzerman, you sly son of a gun. Listen, we could say we could do deadline winners and losers all we want. The Detroit Red Wings are in this thing. And this is a Seattle, and I'm talking directly to you, Seattle. If you're going to pivot off this, I pivot right now. Call Vancouver about Brock Besser. Do it. Do it.
But we've also got a trade in Dallas. This might be minor league stuff. I'm not sure. Oh, no, it shouldn't be. We have acquired Scott Reddy from San Jose for Jacob Peterson. Reddy has been assigned to the Texas Stars.
I mean, JVR to Detroit. I got to see what's coming back to Philly.
Yeah, I'm curious what that is. Do they have to take a contract out for that? Like, is this going to be like a swap?
This pending physical trade call, so that's what Friedman is hearing.
We're going to wait. Van Riemsdyk's in the last year of a big deal. I wouldn't be – listen, I wouldn't be shocked if you're him. I would stay in Detroit if it's offered to me over the summer. I like that core.
Yeah, they were the ones that they really kind of. I mean, they were one of the teams that had quite the spending spree. I mean, getting Sherratt, David Perron, just the different moves that they made.
Andrew Kopp.
You know, and then now, as we briefly mentioned when we were talking about Bertuzzi leaving and going to Boston, you know, Larkin had the 8-year contract extension now because there was, people were wondering whether they were going to move on from Larkin, which was just an interesting conversation to even have because he's like he's the captain, he's the face of that team right now, and that was even in discussion, but he's locked up for 8 years. So But yeah, and like I said, they're in this thing. I mean, they're in this thing. Ottawa's in this thing. Sabres are in this thing.
But
Islanders.
I want to say this. I'm sorry to cut you off, Nate. I
You're,
think it's more pressing for Ottawa and Detroit that
yeah,
they make the playoffs more so than the Sabres, because the Sabres, they're on a timeline here where they can say, we're playing competitive hockey in March.
yeah, that
We've
was the
gotten
goal.
what we've won. Ottawa and Detroit, everything they've done from the summer till now, those chips are in for the future.
Mm-hmm.
Ottawa gave up first for Chikrin. They're in now. They gave Mike Claude Giroux. They're in now. Everything Detroit did over the summer, they're in now.
Yeah.
And you have to go do what you got to do if you're the Detroit Red Wings. But, oh, man, I got to tell you, for me, that's a massive move, not just by Detroit, but it's a massive not get for Seattle. Because if Seattle was in this thing till the end and Detroit just, unless Detroit made an offer that just blew everything out of the water.
You know what happened? You know what happened? Both of these teams played each other yesterday, Seattle and the Red Wings. And so the loser had to have gotten Van Riemsdyk. That had to have been what it was. That clearly, because Seattle won in overtime, and then now all of a sudden JVR is a Red Wing. No, I just happened to look, because I'm pulling up the stats for the Red Wings, and I just looked on Google, and they played each other yesterday. And
Yeah,
I'm
they
like,
did.
well, there you go.
Seattle won in overtime. Oliver Bjorkstrand.
Loser gets the help of getting JVR on their team.
This is from Darren Drager. JVR likely heading to Detroit. Deal isn't done as the Red Wings are in the process of moving another player.
See, that's what I wondered, based on all the if there was going to be some guy that they were going to get rid of. Now, let me look through this team here, because Larkin leads the team right now in points, 58 and 60 games, 22 goals, 36 assists. Kubalik is second on the team. Perron, Lucas Raymond, Kopp. Who do you think that they would maybe get rid of? Okay, well, Sundqvist is gone. So
Sundqvist's already gone.
He's already gone. So who do you move?
I wonder about a guy like Adam Ernie.
I was going to mention him.
I think that might be a guy you'd have to look at.
How has Fabry been for them? I only see 15 points in 25 games.
I mean, he's
been hurt.
He's hurt. He's often hurt. I mean, I would have thought Vrana would have been the corresponding move here, but man, I don't know what you. There's a lot of moving parts here for Detroit, but I kind of like it.
I think a lot of people wanted to keep Joe Veleno, so.
Again, I also from Philly, I know we're 15 minutes away, and we know deals trickle in across time, but
yeah, that's why we were going to stay. I think
we're going to stay a little bit longer than 3. Yeah. But what else does Philly just sitting on their hands, twiddling their thumbs? What else we got going on? Justin Braun's a guy I would think about moving. Provorov, despite the Pride Night stuff, I wonder if that made some teams leery, but he would be a guy I would think about. Kevin Hayes. I know there's a lot of term left on that deal, but there's been talks of they might buy him out over the summer. So why would you buy him out if someone would be willing to take on some help?
Yeah, so we'll have to see. We'll have to see what move they make here. Stay tuned. We have a little bit of time still that we're trying to figure all that out.
David Pagnotta, Devils and Jesper Bratt's camp continue to discuss an extension, but there's still a lot of work to be done. Don't expect a deal today. So,
okay, Frank Saravalli. No trade. This was from a minute ago. No trade in place at this exact moment in time for James Van Riemsdyk. So
So they got to get this Detroit's got to get this first deal done.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's 15 minutes left.
Well, remember that could be a call that's in place now, and
yeah. Oh yeah. Okay, so maybe they
remember that they could be ironing out the details.
I would love to be in a room where all these calls are being taken place, because it's got to be the most fascinating thing in the world.
Listen, I would love to be on those calls too. But
oh my god, you got like Philly on hold for James Van Riemsdyk, but you're like, hold on, we gotta get rid of this other guy first. Okay,
we got to do this, and then we could do this, and then we could do that,
and then we could get rid of Riemsdyk. We'll trade that.
There's a Red Wings writer who I follow, and she took a screenshot of her Twitter feed, and it's just below from 6 minutes ago, Elliot Friedman, hearing JVR to Detroit, and then above it's the Frank Saravelli, no trade in place at this exact moment, and she's just like, well, okay then.
Well, okay, why don't you play with my heart some more?
The other part you could talk about on this is if Seattle says, wait a second, hold on, don't count us out.
Wait.
Whatever Detroit offers you, will offer you more.
And I got to tell you, people are going to have a field day at the Insiders. Oh, wait, Chris Johnston told James Van Riemsdyk is not getting traded to the hashtag Red Wings.
I just got a tweet from Darren Dreger. Oh, boy, things changing fast on JVR.
Are we watching Seattle just swoop right in and be like, now wait just a minute here?
Watch who?
I'm hoping Seattle then.
Yeah.
If Philly winds up with having to keep Van Riemsdyk,
well, if they can't get a deal done and now it's JVR staying.
Oh, and then you're going to really see the Philly fans come after Chuck Fletcher. If you do nothing.
They've been trying to get rid of JVR, I think, because I know Sabres were interested in him, or at least taking phone calls, literally up to this week. But they were talking I think we had a conversation, Mike, about them trying to get him in like the summertime. So Philly's been trying to get rid of his contract for almost 6 months now.
But the stupidest part is he's in the last year of his deal. So you could have done this at any point.
It's funny. Most people I'm seeing on Twitter, I think when they're reacting to Elliot Friedman being like, hearing JVR to Detroit, a lot of people are going, why? So they don't share.
Hold on. We've got some NHL Rumors Daily. They tweeted, wonder if Tampa gets in the defensive market here before the Horn. Heard some things. And apparently the name is Edmondson, Joel Edmondson from Montreal.
Tampa, I'm begging you. Do it, Tampa. I'm begging you. I said it earlier.
Someone goes, please tell me it's Edmondson, and the NHL Rumor says that's the name I've heard thrown around.
David Pagnotta, the Panthers have received a lot of interest in Radko Gudas and have been weighing their options. 12 minutes to go till the deadline.
Why am I nervous?
I don't know. I'm the most calm person here. That's because I know the Rangers aren't going to do it. I'm still mad at the Coyotes.
Well, the Rangers have done their moves already. They got
so I'm good.
Tarasenko. Are you kidding me?
You're
I'm
so
just
nervous.
mad at the Coyotes. That's been this theme of this stream. I'm mad at the Coyotes.
Yeah, you're so nervous with your Patrick Kane and.
I said I'm not nervous.
Yeah,
I'm the most calm one here.
Oh man.
This James Van Riemsdyk thing is
something happened. Okay, Elliot Friedman. Something happened with JVR in Detroit. Pulled back from the deal. Let's see how it plays out.
So that must be a physical thing.
I don't know if JVR pulled out or Detroit must have pulled it back.
There'll be some tweet that comes out from 5 years ago about how Van Riemsdyk hates octopi or something. It's
I gotta think maybe it's a physical ailment, or Detroit thinks they could get a better deal for someone else.
Maybe.
Yeah, and Freeman goes, let's see how it plays out. So
JVR's forward, right?
JVR's a winger, yeah.
Okay, winger, yeah.
Yeah, there was something which I didn't even think he was being rumored, but I guess his brother Trevor, who's a defenseman for Washington, they're like, yeah, he's not getting moved today. And I'm like, was there talk of that? Like,
yeah, because unless your name really is Ovechkin or Oshie, I think most names were on the table for Washington today.
Probably not Carlson either.
I mean, Carlson, I wouldn't think, but I think a lot of Washington over the summer is going to depend on what happens with Nick Backstrom. Is he coming back, or is he going to?
Yeah, that's interesting because I mean, I remember talking with you about Strome because you lock Strome up long term, and it's like, okay, is that going to be who Ovechkin's going to be rolling with going forward?
Well, remember they locked up Strome and Sonny Milano, so that's what I'm talking about with Pittsburgh. That's at least long-term planning. Strome, Milano, those are young pieces who could develop under your watch. And if they don't pan out, you can move them for something because someone will give up something for the potential. That's not what Pittsburgh's doing. This is from Matt Laughlin, covers the Devils. Lindy Ruff acknowledges that Timo Meier has been cleared for contact. The next step is to get in more practice. He will not play tonight for the Devils.
Okay.
No Timo Meier for the Devils in Vegas.
It's a smart move. You're in a solid position. You're not gonna if you lose a couple games, you're not gonna be. I mean, you're winning anyway. So don't bring him in until he's ready to go.
This is from Joe Smith. Sundqvist to the Wild for a 4th rounder this year. You know, I'll throw this one out there. What if Detroit circled back to Vancouver and they wind up with Brock Besser?
Oh,
Brock Besser on Detroit. I'm saying this with 8 minutes to spare on the deadline, but I'm just thinking from a mindset of where are we?
Okay, can I just say, for some reason, I don't know why this year, every trade deadline in every major sport was so active this year.
Okay, but this is the first time the NHL trade deadline has acted like the NBA trade deadline or the MLB
I know.
trade
Well, but remember, Mike, we talked about on the NFL one. The NFL trade deadline was surprisingly active this year.
It really was.
Yeah. Yeah, well, this is what everyone wants it to be. I mean, so many years. I think I remember in high school there were so many. Like, I would be like, "Oh, it's trade deadline day," and it's like there were like 3 moves, and that was it. It's just like.
But the NBA trade line's always like crazy.
The NBA trade deadline's insane.
Oh yeah, Kyrie gets moved. Freaking
Kevin Durant gets moved.
Durant goes to Phoenix.
All right, so the Leafs announced the Dryden Hunt deal.
Oh, that's what we were going to talk about. We were going to talk about the other moves that.
Well, and then sidetracked by JVR.
And then JVR decided to pop his head in and go, "Hello,
hello." Actually, I got traded to the Leafs instead. He's already been on the Leafs.
He was a Leaf sludge.
He was a Leaf. Yeah, that was during the Kessel years.
Yeah.
Okay. Michael, I guess I'll ask you this because Islanders trade with the Leafs. The Islanders get Pierre Engvall. With Toronto getting a 3rd-round pick in 2024. What do you think about Engvall going to the Islanders? Do you like the move or?
Seems like a classic Lou kind of thing. Bottom 6 can give you some offense, but more of a depth player. Kind of just feels like a move Toronto had to make to get clear cap for what else they did. But I mean, Engvall could get a chance here with the Islanders, and Lou obviously knows him. From his time I know is laughing at something, and I don't know if it's. I did.
Okay, this is very off topic. I just saw the story; it's just insane. Did you see what happened in the XFL?
No, but go on.
The Guardians of the XFL cut QB Quentin Dormady after he allegedly gave an opposing team the Guardians playbook. The team heard about it, investigated, and released Dormady immediately. They also removed his stats from the XFL website. He gave the team the opposing playbook.
That's amazing.
That's amazing. That's Elliot Friedman. Troy Stetcher to Calgary from Arizona.
Ooh.
Okay, what's coming back?
I don't.
No. Wait a second. Here's the most important question I think I'll ever ask on this show. Is Arizona retaining salary?
It doesn't say. It literally just says Troy Stetcher to Calgary from Arizona. That's all it says.
Arizona, if you're retaining salary again, I'm gonna fight with the whole state.
They're gonna be paid for people, half the people that aren't even on their roster.
You're gonna pay people to not play for you. I'm honestly at a point with the Arizona Coyotes where I'm just gonna say, make them the Atlanta Thrashers.
See, oh jeez.
Send them back to Quebec.
They were never in Quebec.
or send them to Quebec.
I get you. I'm like, no, they were in Winnipeg before.
Get a team back in Quebec. Bring back the Nordiques.
Yeah, the Jets
Only
lose.
if baseball brings back the Expos.
Winnipeg loses.
I don't know why the two are mutual, but I'm going to say it anyway.
Okay. Oh, that's funny. Someone jokingly made a Van Riemsdyk Red Wings jersey like online, and they go, "Well, what am I supposed to do with this now?"
It'll fit right in with the Jonathan Quick Columbus jersey.
Yeah, really.
Oh, quick NFL news, Mike and Nate. Raiders are placing the franchise tag on Josh Jacobs.
All right. I kind of expected that. Not.
Yeah.
But Jeremy Rutherford, barring anything unforeseen in the last 5 minutes, Blues deadline work is done. So the Blues are done for the day.
Bleacher Report Open Ice's Twitter account. Life comes at you fast, and it's just hearing JVR to Detroit told James Van Riemsdyk is not getting traded to the Red Wings.
I love the jersey one. What am I supposed to do with this thing now?
Oh, yeah, we'll have to see. That's the thing. That I don't trust this deadline to be done the second it's 3, because with the amount of trades that have happened this whole season, like we'll get something probably. I think by 4:00 we should know. Like the last deals should be done.
We should know the last couple of deals, but
I think that's the latest ever was like 4:00. They're like, oh, this trade happened, and it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, but still waiting on this Troy Stetcher announcement, to be honest with you, because I got to know if Arizona's retaining again. If Arizona's retaining, we're gonna have fighting words. Me and the entire state of Arizona.
The last Leafs trade that I wanted to talk about, because I mentioned the 3 that we were talking about before. Luke Schenn going back to the Leafs, and he gets traded from the Vancouver Canucks, goes back to Toronto where he was drafted back in 2008, and Vancouver gets a 3rd-round pick in 2023. Thoughts about Schenn going back to Toronto? Because it's interesting, because I'm trying to remember when he left Toronto, but he's been gone for a while, and he reminds me so much of like someone leaves or whatever, and you don't see them for like a long time, and then all of a sudden they're like a long lost friend that comes back, and it's just like, look at all the stuff Schenn he won 2 cups with Tampa, like.
Elliot Friedman, Patrick Brown from Philly to Ottawa.
What happened?
Patrick Brown from Philly to Ottawa, Elliot Friedman.
Okay.
Again, depth move for Ottawa.
I love
if this is tweet. Philly's only move, Chuck Fletcher deserves to be fired. I don't agree with the city of Philadelphia on much.
I love Pagnata's tweet here. Pencils down. The 2023 NHL trade deadline has arrived.
Oh, God. Yeah, I saw that, and that brought me back to when I was in high school.
Pencils down.
I was worried. I was always nervous after I was taking those final exams.
Oh, final exams.
Sabres announcement. There's Pitch Brown. But yeah, going back to your Luke Shen conversation, Nate, it gives the Leafs a little bit more physicality on the blue line that they don't really have.
Plus,
So
now he's a vet. He was a kid when they first got him, but he's a vet now for some of these other guys.
I kind of wonder this because they also don't forget they added Jake McCabe, and I just wonder if they did too much to the team. I don't want to say morale, but the team chemistry.
Well, see, that's the thing is that I wonder if because there's so much pressure, you did way too much to try to, because they're like, oh, look at how good this team is. All right, now we have to have as much depth as possible when we make it to the playoffs. You go get Jake McCabe. We didn't even talk about that trade. It's like they all of these defensemen. I saw I think 3 defensemen made their debut for the Leafs yesterday. It's like McCabe, Shen, and Gustafson. I think all 3 made their debuts at the same time. It's like 3 separate trades. Like,
Pierre LeBrun, Carolina done for the day, no trades. I think that's a major L for Carolina.
Oh, wow.
They didn't believe it in the
Per Jeff.
Yep. You got the Freeman thing. Rasmus Asplund going from Buffalo to Nashville.
How can they split up Asplund and Dahlin, the Rasmus brothers?
Well, yeah, I mean, Ristolainen was the first to go.
Ristolainen went for a first. I still don't know how that paid off. How that was pulled off.
Sens trade a 6th-round pick to Philly for Brown.
If this again, I'm going to say it again. If this is Philly's only move, I would fire Chuck Fletcher tonight.
I'll say this on ask.
So Chuck, what moves did you make today? Just this one.
Oh,
get out!
I was gonna make this JVR move, but Detroit didn't feel like it, and I was banking on that one.
Yeah.
And Seattle, and then someone from Seattle called, but I don't know who that is. Like, they don't even have them saved to the voicemail.
Wow, JVR stays put.
Oh boy. Chuck, take a bow, my friend.
So what's basically going to happen, because I think we had the JVR conversation back in like June about him getting traded in the offseason. What basically is going to happen is that a year after we had the conversation about him getting traded, he'll either get traded or he won't be traded.
JVR was not dealt. Whatever was possible did not get consummated with Detroit.
I'll say this on Rasmus Asplund. I think he only played like 20-some games for us this year. It's just another example, a guy who was like a depth guy. He is pretty good defensively. He got Selke votes last year, which is interesting because he definitely was not up there for me as top defensive players, but he was very good. And I just think that, again, this was like with Hinostroza, them trying to trade him. There just was no room on the team for him.
Nashville is also extending Dante Fabro, that for Jeff Marek. Nashville, have yourself – listen, I'll say this. I would put Nashville in the winners category of the deadline.
I'm really kind of sad that Edmondson didn't get dealt from Montreal.
Well, again, we don't know. That might trickle through. We haven't heard it.
Yeah, we still have another hour.
We still got some time here. They don't announce all these deals as long as you're on the line with the league.
What is the contract situation for Edmondson?
Let me check.
Let me go to the cap friendly.
I'm curious. He has left, doesn't he?
Currently. This is from Sport Track. He's got 1 year left after this year. Then he'll be a UFA in 2024, 2025.
What's the cap hit?
This year. Oh yeah, both years. Both years will be $3.5 million.
So that they would need Montreal to retain.
Yeah,
probably most.
His base salary next year is 1.187, but then his cap it's 3.5.
Nope. Chris Johnston, Canadians done for the day. Joel Edmondson was not moved.
Damn.
Nashville sends a 7th rounder in 2025 to Buffalo for Asplund. So
that's just getting an asset back for him because
that's essentially
maybe Asplund will actually get some playing time in Nashville because he just wasn't.
All right.
Mike, you are now the host. It has been fun talking, boys. We'll talk again soon.
All right.
Yep, see you.
Namaste.
I gotta leave. Bye.
Yeah. See you.
All right. So we're still here.
Yes.
Can I go back to Carolina?
Yeah, go ahead.
Because this is for me, this is the one team, like we talked about it at the beginning of the show. The Rangers made their moves. The Devils made their move. Boston made their move. Toronto made their move. Carolina's at the forefront of this. And they stood pat. Puljujärvi, Gostisbehere. I don't love it. Although Puljujärvi, I do think needed a change of scenery. Yeah. This was a time to, if you're Don Waddell, this was a time to look and try to hit a home run. And instead, you bunted down the third base line.
I didn't hate the moves they made. I just, as you said.
No, I would have wanted them to do more. I wanted them to go big today.
Yeah. Puljujärvi and Gostisbehere should be fine for them, but there needed to be at least one more move for them.
Yeah, that's the like. Listen, Philly's not going anywhere this year. I'll harp. Frank Saravalli, LA Kings have traded Austin Wagner to the Blackhawks for future considerations. I gotta love future considerations here.
Yeah,
it's a great deal.
Charlie O'Connor, he's the lead Flyers writer at The Athletic. Hearing that JVR ultimately was not traded, what an absolute failure on the part of Chuck Fletcher and the Flyers.
100%. It's a massive failure by the Flyers because they had the asset. They knew they wanted to get rid of him, and they couldn't find the taker. And they had plenty of suitors.
Yeah. Well, he almost went to Detroit. And I'm really curious what happened there.
But I don't know if we'll ever find out.
Yeah. Well, maybe we will.
But here's the thing. Minnesota was in. Colorado was apparently in. Winnipeg was in. Seattle was in. And you wait until 250 or whatever it was, we start talking about, this could stuff's getting real here. And you wind up with nothing out of this. Like, that's a failure. The effing Flyer today stands for failure.
Yeah.
Darren Dreger, Brock Besser, and JT Miller remain Canucks. I think that's more of a summertime thing then.
Yeah, no.
At least Besser is.
I would say at least JT Miller is, because Miller, too, you have that gigantic contract. It goes back to what we were saying about Carlson with San Jose. I think you just, with the bigger contracts, I think it just takes more time. In the summer, you have all the time in the world. So if you want to take time and figure out how you want to settle that whole thing, do it then. That's when some of these bigger moves is. I mean, granted, I don't want to say that because we've had a ton of big moves this entire week, but I think the summer is probably a good time for that.
But JT Miller just signed a deal.
Yeah, and the fact that they're already trying to get out of it. I mean, it's like
he signed a 5-year, $26.25 million deal. No, that was with Tampa. I thought he just signed an extension. Am I wrong on that?
JT did just re-sign with them because he had the 99-point campaign for them.
You looking this at all has the Lightning contract.
Well, no, because he had.
Oh no, he did sign a 7-year extension. There it is.
Yeah, because everyone was talking about how they probably should have given that money to Horvat.
But instead, again, who's going to take JT Miller for 7 years if he's over the age of 30? Not that I'm trying to be ageist; it's just the way these trades work.
Right.
Like that's the Asplin deal. I don't get it. I don't understand what Philly's doing. I don't understand what Carolina's trying to. Let me rephrase it. I know what Carolina's trying to do, but the arms race that is the Eastern Conference and the National Hockey League,
they didn't
like that's not gonna work. You're banking on Sebastian Aho, Marty Necas, Andrei Svechnikov, the cast of characters they got on the back end, including Brent Burns and Jacob Slavin. But then you're also banging on Freddie Anderson also to stay healthy. And
right.
that is something Freddie Anderson has never been able to do. And I love Freddie Anderson. But I think Carolina missed an opportunity. Unless the prices were so bad that they didn't want to do it. But
yeah, that's about the Patrick Brown trade.
Pierre LeBrun, John Klingberg traded to Minnesota. Ducks got it in under the wire.
Oh, wow.
It's a little bit of a confusing one, unless I'd have to see what's going back to Anaheim.
Interesting.
I mean, Klingberg gives you some good offense from the point. Could quarterback a power play.
I know some people were saying that, like, people were talking about Klingberg as like a backup option if anyone was trying to get like Erik Karlsson, which, I think the one benefit there, obviously they're both right-handed defensemen that are offensive, but with Klingberg, you don't have a massive plus for him as opposed to Karlsson. He makes $7 million, so it's less of a cap hit. But it's a 1-year deal.
That's the point. It's a 1-year deal. And so he's up at the end of the year.
He's a rental for them.
Yeah. Let's just see what Anaheim got back. Because I'll be honest, I haven't been impressed with Anaheim from a seller perspective. And I'm not going to lie. I had a higher expectation of Anaheim when they signed Frank Vetrano, Klingberg, and Ryan Strome this summer to go along with Trevor Zegras and Mason McTavish.
Now they're in the Bedard sweepstakes.
And I'll tell you this, for this summer, I would love to be on John Gibson watch.
Yeah. Well, some people were wondering about him for the trade deadline, which at least right now it appears that's not happening. But
no, and frankly, I think he should be moved because he's a good goalie and he's wasting his time on a team that's still in a rebuild. So this is from Adam Herman of Bleacher Report. Here's the Flyer season so far. Missed out on Gaudreau because they couldn't move JVR. Constant losing. Provorov refuses to wear Pride jersey. Farabee gets mad and can't imagine a future with Torts in charge. Sanheim scratched at his hometown. Couldn't move JVR again. Did I miss anything?
Oh, jeez. Yeah, that's the Frank Saravelli. Chuck Fletcher could not move JVR for anything.
Like, I don't get it. I don't understand how hearing the Frank Saravelli Flames are getting Troy Stetcher and Nick Ritchie in exchange for Connor Mackey and Brett Ritchie. So if Nick Ritchie and Brett Ritchie are brothers, that's hilarious. And thank you, Coyotes, for not retaining salary.
Oh, geez. Someone goes pour one out for JVR, folks, and it's just a JVR 25 Red Wings going into the rafters. And instead of years of how long he played there, it was 257 to 259.
Oh, boy.
This is the thing. When that whole JVR thing was talked about, I immediately pictured him in that jersey. Just immediately. And it looked good. The Van Riemsdyk 25 Red Wings jersey looked good. And with some of those other guys that they got over there, I think that would have been a really good move for them.
Devils Twitter account. Hashtag sources in parentheses us say we're done for the day. No more trades. Still waiting on that Klingberg.
So someone said someone was referring to the Sabres getting rid of Asplund for a 7th-round pick, and they go. Someone goes, they were scared to say future considerations. I guess instead of a 7th. So then the guy goes. The guy responds, future considerations that will actually be considered.
I mean, a 7th-round pick could turn into anything.
It could. Well, plus you could always find ways to use that for something else.
Right. Like Henrik Lundqvist was a 6th or 7th-round pick.
Yeah.
So let's not make it seem that, hey, these guys are gonna stink. So. Still waiting on this Klingberg return.
Yeah, see what the actual.
So the Richies are brothers, apparently.
I had a feeling that they were.
Listen, I don't know. I did not know. There's too many Richies, and none of them are Richie Cunningham. So,
seeing here.
I also heard Minnesota was considering moving Dumba. I wonder if that's a part of this. Could Anaheim eat some of the Dumba money?
Oh, that is a good point, because I know, Dumba has been talked about. Would Dumba goes to
and then they could not dump, but they could move on from Dumba after the season if they really wanted to.
Yeah, test it out, see how it would go. Yeah. So, okay. So I'm just seeing the Fabro contract now. It was only for like 1 year. 1 year, $2.5 million.
I'll tell you what, though, it gives you an opportunity if you're Dante Fabro to grow up.
Yeah. Well, he's only 24 years old.
Right, and you got him.
He plays a 2-way game. So I mean, see what he can do in another year.
I mean, you get him. You just added Cal Foote. You have Yossi. You have Ryan McDonough. The Preds, if there's one thing the Preds know, it's defense. And trading Marty Urat for Philip Forsberg, which is still one of my favorite trades of all time, knowing what Philip Forsberg has become.
I'm just trying to imagine what that line would have looked. I mean, you're not getting Oshie probably if you have Forsberg, but just imagine. I mean, look, it worked out because they have a cup, but imagining what an Ovechkin, Backstrom, Forsberg line could have looked like.
I don't know if Ovi has 802 goals.
That's fair. That is fair. So that's interesting. So looking at this from a Wild perspective, obviously Greenway goes, but we're referring to who they get Oscar Sundqvist, and then they get Klingberg. So depth forward and a pretty big piece on defense.
Yeah, again, we're waiting on seeing what's coming back to Anaheim, but I got to think for them, the other part is Klingberg knows the Central because he played for Dallas for so long.
Right.
And I don't even know if he's a Star Trek fan, so I can't even say if he speaks Klingon or not. But
yeah, so looking, and obviously when you think about Minnesota, you think of Kaprizov, obviously, and he's having a hell of a year. 73 points in 62 games, 39 goals, 34 assists.
And if McDavid was to have the year he's having, he'd be in the conversation too for the Hart.
Yeah, your boy Zuccarello, 60 games played, 20 goals, 38 assists, 58 points. Eriksson Ek, 21 goals, 26 assists, 47 points. Matt Boldy, who obviously I remember him being kind of like a big name prospect for Minnesota. He's been doing all right for them. And yeah, I mean,
those guys some of them aren't having the same contributions they did a year ago. But they're going to come down to this for them. If they get Marc-Andre Fleury to be Marc-Andre Fleury, they're going to be a tough out.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, that's a Hall of Fame goalie on a team that, kind of like Calgary, they have to win 2-1, 3-2. They don't score a ton of goals. So...
Yeah, I forgot that they also the Wild also got Marcus Johansson back. This is his second stint.
It's true. The Caps made that deal with them. Yeah.
Yep. So yeah, Johansson. They got Gustav Nyquist,
but he's not playing.
No,
he's hurt.
That was an interesting move that they got him. So is that just for? Do they just doing that for the salary purposes?
I think they did. I think what they did was they tried to stash him on their roster in case he is ready for the playoffs. But I'm not sure.
Yeah, looking at this defense right now for Minnesota, Kalen Addison, Jonas Brodin, Matt Dumba, who is an assistant captain, alternate captain for them, Alex Goligoski, Dakota Mermis, John Merrill, Jake Middleton, and Jared Spurgeon, who obviously is.
And they were talking about moving Goligoski, so that could be part of the stupid Goligoski. That can be a slap into the face because he wants to go to a winner, I would presume, not Anaheim. This is from David Pagnotta again. The Stars were working on trying to land a defenseman. Not sure where that stands now that the deadline has passed. So we might hear something from Dallas.
Yeah.
I mean, I know a lot of people are talking about some of the buyers, but I look at the sellers, man, and there's only really two that stand out. What Nashville did this deadline, which we talked about before, setting Barry Trotz up for a great potential run as the GM. I think that was fantastic. And I don't think Vancouver did as well as they could have from a seller perspective. I'm tired of giving the Coyotes anything because I don't think they did right. The Blackhawks screwed this up. The only seller who I think did really great here, again, that's going to depend on what Anaheim's going to look like after this Klingberg deal. Nashville as a seller, I think did a really good job in winning this deadline. Even Columbus, I'll even give Columbus a lot of credit for what they did for Jonathan Quick.
Yeah. Let's see if anything.
And you know what? I'll say that I won't say they're a winner or a loser, but I like the Greenway deal for the Sabres. I won't sit here and say I don't.
Yeah, I think for that, well, and then Stillman was another case of we want to bring a physical force to the back end, and we also need an extra because they lost Casey Fitzgerald to Florida. You got something?
Yep, Joe Smith. Here's the Klingberg return. A fourth. The Wild are sending a fourth in 2025. Andre Schuster and rights to Nestorenko, and the Ducks are retaining half of Klingberg's salary. I don't understand this from the Ducks, but okay. Unless Nestorenko is a really good prospect or something.
Well, then isn't this the second time Schuster's going to be there?
I just know Schuster was a Lightning. That's all I remember Andre Schuster for.
I think he was a Lightning twice. Like I think this is his second time going to the Ducks. I think he was also a Lightning twice. Let me see.
But no, it's a send down. For me, that's a steal for Minnesota. And Anaheim retains half. Like, that's a layup. Unless they had something else go down. This is a massive, massive W for the Wild. and it's pretty wild.
Yeah, so this will be the second time I think he's going to be on the third time. This is the third time he's going to be in the Ducks. So Schuster was on the Ducks for the 2018-19 season. He was also in the AHL with the Gulls for most of that time. He only played 5 games for the Ducks. Went to the KHL for a couple years. Went back to Tampa for a year in 2021-22. Was in the Crunch for most of that time, and then got traded to the Ducks, I guess. So he went Tampa, Anaheim, Tampa, Anaheim. Now he's going. Then he went to Minnesota. Now he's going back to Anaheim.
I'll tell you this: he upgraded in weather, going from Minnesota to Anaheim, and he knows how to pick good weather because he played in Anaheim and Tampa.
Very interesting for sure. Well, there you go. So Klingberg, yeah, you got Kling. So they keep Spurgeon, and they not that they were going to lose Spurgeon. That was more about they keep Dumba. So now your right shot defenseman for Minnesota is Dumba, Spurgeon, and Klingberg. At least those are probably your top 3 for that.
And now that'll help your power play too. You know, Klingberg likes to shoot it. A lot of one-sided deals.
Yeah.
You know, even going to like the Patrick Kane deal and the Tarasenko deal, like you have to hit on those picks if you're gonna win big on these deals. Otherwise, or you use them for something bigger.
We could talk about the McCabe trade because I know we referenced it I think multiple times on here, but we didn't actually talk about it. So so the Leafs acquired Jake McCabe and Sam Laverty and a conditional 5th round pick in 2024 and a conditional 5th round pick in 2025. From the Chicago Blackhawks. The Blackhawks acquired Joey Anderson, Pavel Gogolev, a conditional 1st round pick in 2025, a 2nd round pick in 2026, and they retain 50% of McCabe's salary. So, you know, that's what we talk when we talk about the Leafs. Obviously, just all of the moves that they made, especially on the back end. It's very interesting, their approach, where they're just making as many moves as they've made. They got Luke Shen back. They got Eric Gustafson. They got rid of Sandin, and then they're bringing in McCabe, and it's just like, wow, that's a lot. I know that there's a lot of pressure on the Leafs management and coaching because if they don't win a round this year, that could very well be the wraps for them. But this just seems like they're going a little bit overboard. Do you agree, or do you think it's?
I think there's a lot of moving parts to what the Leafs are doing, and I think that's not the best thing for team chemistry. So these guys are going to have to quickly work out whatever it is they have to work out, but they're learning this on the fly, and I think that's one of the things that the trade deadline helps and hurts, where you may be upgrading in some of these. You have to know when too much is too much. And for the Leafs, as good of a defense core as they've built and they've acquired through the trade deadline, for me, it's going to come down to the goaltending. Can Matt Murray or Samsonov, who've had good regular seasons, can they do it in the playoffs? Right. And they're probably going to play Tampa. I mean, that's pretty much locked in. So you're going up against Point, Kucherov, Stamkos. And listen, I'll tell you this. We talked about it before. O'Reilly, Tavares, Matthews down the middle. Point, Cirelli, whoever you want to put at 3 for Tampa. Like, I think the difference in the series, is 88 in net. If you can match him, you could beat Tampa Bay. The problem is not many teams can match that guy in goal. So as good as a job as the Leafs have done, and you're right, they're going to be judged on what to do. So this is from Chris Johnston on the Leafs. With the Leafs not making any NHL additions today, they've left enough cap space to activate Matt Murray from long-term IR in the coming days and sign Matthew Nice to an entry-level contract when his NCAA season ends.
Okay. I've heard about him so quite a bit.
Well, I wonder this, if he's a senior, which would mean he has to sign, otherwise he becomes a free agent July 1. Where do you're going to put him on the third, fourth line?
Right.
His top six, I think, are kind of loaded. Although they don't have Nick Robertson for the year after his shoulder. I think he had shoulder surgery. But we're still waiting to see if anything else trickles in.
Yep. Looking, let me see. Let me actually update the trade tracker on here. Because I've been mainly doing this on Twitter.
So this is from Michael Russo of The Athletic. With the Wild acquiring John Klingberg, they'll carry 8D with Alex Goligoski staying put. As I reported this morning, it felt like they'd want a D and were willing to move Goligoski if he wanted to. Now that he's staying, Goligoski and Addison may be the extras once Jonas Brodin is back.
Interesting. Looking to see if there were any other trades we did not talk about. We never talked about the Tanner Jeannot trade, which got quite a bit of. I know we referenced it, but it's a very interesting trade. There was a lot of interesting analysis about the trade as well when this went down. This happened back on February 26th, late night trade. The Lightning acquire Tanner Jeannot, and the Nashville Predators acquire, as a result, from Tampa, Cal Foote, a 2025 top 10 protected first-round pick, a 2024 second-round pick, a 2023 third-round pick, a 2023 fourth-round pick, and a 2023 fifth-round pick. There's a lot of assets going to Nashville for Tanner Jeannot. So, Mike, what are your thoughts on this whole trade? Do you think it was too much to give up for Jeannot? And what do you think Jeannot will do for the Lightning? I know you referenced before that, he'll probably be a nice bottom six forward for them.
I kind of like the deal for both sides. Nashville gets the picks and Cal Foote, and Tampa gets a guy who, let's be real honest, he'll play the Tampa style. His numbers this year aren't great, but he had good numbers last year. And I got to tell you, this feels like the Andre Palat replacement for me. Like, they never replaced Palat. They thought Nick Paul and Hagel, that was going to work. And it's worked to a certain extent with those guys. Tanner Jeannot can play that same style. And he's going to finish his checks. He's going to get greasy. And I think he's going to give a spark to a team that can use it, to be honest with you. For Nashville, get the picks. Utilize them however you want. Trades, however. But Tampa Bay is in a situation kind of like Pittsburgh. But it's different because Point, Stamkos, Kucherov, Hedman, Vasilevsky, those guys are all still in their prime. That's why Tampa can take the Rams method of the NFL, and we could say, F them picks. Because guess what? Tampa scouts do a heck of a job as it is. So
keep this going this long.
yeah, so I like what Tampa's doing. I think we have no reason to judge the Lightning on what they give up, especially when most of the time they make great deals.
All right, I'm going to grab my phone charger because my phone's about to die. But
I will take over.
well, I guess one question I want to ask you, one trade that I wanted to discuss with you that happened. This was the same day as when Vancouver got Kravtsov from you guys, but it was Winnipeg acquiring Nino Niederreiter from the Predators. So the Jets get Nino Niederreiter, and the Predators acquire a second-round pick in 2024. So what are your thoughts about Niederreiter? It didn't really seem like it. I mean, he wasn't in Nashville that long. It didn't really seem like that worked out that well. And then now he gets a chance to maybe try to reset a little bit. He goes to Winnipeg to try to see what he can do there with the Jets. What do you think of the move about him? Do you think that this will be a nice change for him? Do you think he'll get back to what he was doing in Carolina with Winnipeg? What are your thoughts?
It gives Winnipeg a nice net front presence, and that's really with the guys who could shoot in Winnipeg: Kyle Connor, Ehlers, Blake Wheeler, Scheifele, Dubois, Josh Morrissey, who's having a Norris caliber season. It gives Winnipeg net front a guy who could probably fit into their top six. Will help them offensively, and this is a team right now in Winnipeg that's lost 4 in a row going into tonight, and they've been outscored. I think it's 16-7, something like that. So Nino Niederreiter may be somebody who gives them a little bit of instant offense. Again, it's not going to be pretty stuff from Niederreiter, but it's a guy who's got a lot of talent. He scored 20 goals in the league. I believe he was a first-round pick. But I like it for Winnipeg. I just wonder if they thought the price was too high on JVR and that they just pivoted and then they said, you know what, we're not even going to go back.
Well, see, and that's what I was wondering too, is because you look at what Nashville gave up for Niederreiter, or what they got for Niederreiter, I should say. You look at what Winnipeg got for Niederreiter, and it's like, okay, so we were able to get Niederreiter for a second-round pick. So, what is JVR? Is JVR for a third-round pick? How is that working?
So here's Pierre LeBrun, and this is from Chuck Fletcher, and I'm quoting. Chuck Fletcher said he didn't receive a firm offer from any team on JVR. Says they spoke with one team about a trade concept, but it was a conditional on that team making another move, and that move didn't happen. Worked the market hard past few weeks, but no fit. I have a massive problem with that statement because you're the kid. Chuck Fletcher's acting like the kid in school who waits until the last minute to do an assignment, and it comes out to being pure crap. You knew the asset you had to move on from was James Van Riemsdyk. You have been wanting to move on from James Van Riemsdyk since the summer. You're telling me from July until February, I know we're in March now, but he said a couple of weeks ago, you couldn't find any deal for James Van Riemsdyk. That's utter BS. And if I was Philly, if I'm in the Philly front office or ownership group, that's unacceptable.
Right.
Because you couldn't find anybody. There were 5-6 teams listed today. Minnesota was in, Colorado was in, Dallas was in, Winnipeg was in, Detroit, Seattle. I had heard some things about the New York Islanders. But you didn't do a damn thing. Like, I don't to be honest, if I was Philly's ownership group, I wouldn't let Chuck Fletcher talk to the media right now. He'd be in my office. He'd be telling me what went down, why we did move off of James Van Riemsdyk, and we could have that conversation. But it's an utter failure. And even this part is an utter failure on his. It's
Yeah.
I can't. I don't.
Because that was the first thing I thought of when I saw the Niederreiter trade. Is all right. Well, now we kind of have somewhat of a market more established for what a Van Riemsdyk deal would look like. I figured you had to. I mean, like I said, they had the opportunity last summer to trade him. They didn't do it. Now all of a sudden, there's all this talk about, well, where is he going to go? He almost goes to Detroit. At least when we connect the dots, it appears like Detroit was that team, and he doesn't get moved.
And honestly, it's for me, it's just something I just can't. I can't fathom how you don't let this guy go. Remember, let's rewind it back to the summer. We all know Johnny Gaudreau wanted to go to Philly. That was the worst kept secret in the whole league.
It really was.
They couldn't fit him in. And they couldn't even move JVR at that point. Now, JVR, who's a free agent this summer, you're going to get nothing back. Absolutely nothing. So for me, this is an absolute failure by Chuck Fletcher. And to be perfectly honest, Torts is there to evaluate the talent. Torts basically said that when he was introduced. The Flyers are going to be very, very busy this summer when it comes to guys who are there and who are not there. One of the guys who I don't expect to be there is Chuck Fletcher.
Yeah.
Because this, to me, this is a lame excuse. I'm sorry. We couldn't get it worked out. You had weeks to work this out. If Detroit pulled out, there's a reason Detroit pulled out. And it's not just because they couldn't make another move.
Let's see if there's anything updated here. Like I said, we'll officially go till 4. Just trying to see, because like I said, some stuff trickles out, and we might be towards the end of seeing anything actually. Kevin Adams on the Riley Stillman, Jordan Greenway additions, quote unquote, teams were trying to bully us. Yeah, they needed to be more physical.
Wait, we got some stuff from the Red Wings here.
Okay.
Alex Nedeljkovic was recalled, and they signed Alex Chason to a 1-year contract.
Well, he really wasn't anywhere, was he? He kind of was just a free agent.
So, and let's be realistic. JVR is a big right winger. What's Alex Chason? A big right winger.
Yeah.
Like, you can't sit there and tell me Detroit didn't have a backup plan. If I'm a Flyer fan, and thankfully I'm not, I'd be pissed off right now. I've seen what the Rangers have done. I've seen what the Devils have done. I've seen what the Islanders have done. I've seen what Boston has done. I've seen what Pittsburgh's done over the years. And we're going to stand pat. We'll make the big free agent splash that just doesn't freaking work. I would be upset. I would be very upset if I'm a Flyers fan.
So do you not putting you on the spot at all? Because we can always maybe eventually do this. Who knows? Maybe in the summer. But when do you think it would be a time to do a Flyers statement address? Not saying now.
You know what? Let's cue it up for the next episode, and I'll draw one up. I'll draw one up. I will. Chuck Fletcher, I'll do your job for you. I have no problems doing that.
Who do you think should be the angriest out of all the teams in the league right now? Is it Arizona? Is it Philly? Is it Pittsburgh?
So which fan base should be the angriest?
You have to pick Philly over Pittsburgh, right? Like Pittsburgh
fans don't deserve to be angry. They deserve to be blamed.
Because they wanted that core. So then you get older guys. Bonino's rejoining that core, and then Granlund is another older guy because they're going for it now.
Philly fans should be angry, and you know what? I think the Vancouver Canuck fans should be mad.
Well, they should be. I think we had talked on the podcast about the Boudreau stuff. We had the Canucks specific episode that we discussed.
Check it out. Anchor, Google, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts.
And how Boudreau was mistreated by the Canucks. I mean, it was we talk about literally this theme was talking about worst kept secrets throughout this entire season. One of the worst kept secrets for Vancouver is that Boudreau was going to be gone, and they dragged that on forever. And Boudreau knew that he wasn't going to be staying, but they kept him in as coach. And everyone can say, no, Rick Tockett's going to be the guy. Rick Tockett's going to be that coach that's going to take over. And and then finally it actually does happen.
And it goes more to that. It's like I brought up earlier when we were talking about Horvat, the Bo Horvat trade. You look at a situation, fans will love a big free agent signing. They'll love a massive trade. They'll love it all. But the most important thing is when you get a homegrown player and he develops and he's having a career year, you sign that guy. And they didn't do it. They moved Bo Horvat, and as well as Anthony Beauvillier's played for them, they have wingers. They have Elias Pettersson. They have Brock Besser, who's also seeking a trade. So at some point, we need to know who's the face of the Canucks' future. Because right now, is it Pettersson? Is it Quinn Hughes? Is it JT Miller? Is it Rick Tocchet?
Is it Demko?
It used to be the Sedins.
Yeah.
So who's the face of the Canucks? Like other teams I could talk about, I think Calgary's a loser today too. I think I'd be upset because Calgary fans should know where are we on this? Are we in? Are we out? Are we punting on this year and thinking about the future? Because if we're thinking about the future, we could have moved some assets maybe for picks or something. But if you're in the middle, you're not in a good position. You're either in or you're out.
Yeah.
And I'll throw one other. I don't want to say if you're a Blackhawk fan, you're angry. But if you're a Blackhawk fan, it's an end of an era. With Kane gone, who knows what if Jonathan Taze comes back next year or this year. But it's a bunch of – we know it's going to be a rebuild, but how long is the rebuild process going to be in Chicago?
Yeah.
But you're right. Philly should be angry.
Oh, here you go. So this is from Bleacher Report, Open Ice, their Twitter account. I'm guessing we probably don't have that many more moves left. We'll stay on for like another 10 minutes, but I'm guessing we're probably done. The NHL trade deadline was wild, and then there's the popcorn emoji. Kane, Tarasenko, Horvat, O'Reilly, Meyer, Chychrun, Klingberg, Bertuzzi, Orlov, Eller, Ekholm, Janot, Granlund, Niederreiter, Gostisbehere, Puljujarvi, Quick twice, Gavrikov, Greenway. Did they mention any other names in here? Yeah, no, those were the names that they went with. So,
I mean, it was the buildup was fun. The day itself kind of lacked a little bit, but you know what? I think a lot of things still worked out. But I just can't believe Philly did nothing.
Yeah, they just flat out did. I mean, and then there were talk. I mean, take the JVR stuff out of this too, because
the only move they made was Patrick Brown. That's their move.
Yeah, well, take the JVR stuff out of it, and it's not even just the whole situation with him and the fact that they've been trying to get rid of him for almost a year now. Look at the Joel Farabee situation.
Yeah.
Where, Farabee's not happy with how the team's been doing, and then his agent makes some comments, and Tortorella tells his agent to shut up. It's just, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Farabee maybe moved in the offseason too.
Yeah.
That wasn't part of a JVR move, who knows? But or you make those separately. But
again, you're probably talking about something that could happen at the draft or something, but it was there. Again, we don't know if there were offers made. We don't know. But I'm going to be pretty sure someone would call you on a 20-something-year-old player who has a lot of upside. But I can't sit here today and say, I'd be positive if I'm a Flyer fan. I'd also be upset if I'm a Kraken fan, to be honest with you. I would have loved to see Seattle do something today.
Yeah.
Not the fact of you're going to mortgage everything by going all in, but the team is in third place in the Pacific and they're in a playoff spot. Go get a guy and say to the team, listen, we're in. We're going for something. I don't care if it's a third-round pick for Joe Schmo. If Joe Schmo you think can bring an impact to your lineup, you do it. You're not mortgaging your future by trading one pick.
So this is from Alexander Appleyard. He is a contributor for the Athletic Philadelphia. A tweet from him. The question most beats would like to ask the Flyers' Chuck Fletcher at this presser. Hey, Chuck, how have you built a team that is at the cap, bottom five in the NHL with only one draft pick in first two rounds of the best draft in 20 years and could not trade anyone as a seller?
This is from Gianna Haunt. Chuck Fletcher. I'm trying to be very clear here. I didn't get a clear offer of even a fourth-round pick. Listen, someone made an offer. I'm not buying no one made an offer for James Van Riemsdyk.
Well, I trust the insiders that Detroit was going to try to do it. I think that the Red Wings were going to try to do it. And who knows, maybe the Red Wings do get him in the summer. But
and they'll say, oh, hey, we don't have to give up anything, but we'll sign you 1 year, $3 million. Here you go, JVR. Here's net front. I don't know. To me, I think Philly's lost. Again, there's being good, there's being bad, and there's being in the middle. The Flyers didn't know what they were, so they're bad. But they have some talent, but they're in the middle.
Yeah.
Like they're going to find – the most important thing Flyers fans found out this year is Carter Hart can play. That is the most important thing the Flyers fans have found out.
Which we kind of figured he could, but obviously he had struggled quite a bit for them.
Right, and if he had struggled again, he would have needed a change of scenery.
Yeah. David Pagnota, trade 19 of the day. Rangers acquire defenseman Wyatt Kalynuk from the Canucks for future considerations.
I got to tell you, future considerations gets around.
Yeah, I don't even think they even played in any games for some of these teams.
No, future considerations just every deal is future considerations.
Trying to see. I looked at the trade tracker for Sportsnet that we've been using, and we're very happy that we have this just to keep track of all the madness that has been not even just today, but being able to talk about
the month.
Yeah, the month, really ever since Horvat. Oh, okay. All right. There's a little bit more. Pagnota got some of this deal, but the Rangers officially announced this 7 minutes ago. Official. New York Rangers have acquired forward Anton Blith, Blidh. He was with the Avalanche, I think, from the Colorado Avalanche in exchange for forward Gustav Rydal, and have acquired defenseman Wyatt Kalynuk from the Vancouver Canucks in exchange for future considerations. Okay, so they announced 2 trades then.
So 2 minor league deals for the Rangers.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm not going to beat up on Chris Drury. He made what his moves.
What are you to beat him up for? What was the big move today, Chris?
Yeah, listen, John Klingberg went for a sack of potatoes. I would have taken that.
Oh, my God. You have enough stuff. We know what your cap hit looks like. Because the only reason it's not over the maximum is because you have teams that are like, oh yeah, we'll cover for you.
Listen, don't blame me because Arizona's gullible.
Minnesota, I think, was the one that took on more third. They were more of a third party, I think, than Arizona was. Arizona has the reputation overall, but I think in this last 10 days or whatever, I think Minnesota's done 2 deals where they were the third team involved.
The other part of this, and this is going to get off a little bit of on topic, but I know the league I know Bettman has talked about this. We've got to talk about the salary cap.
Yeah.
Like, I know you lost money due to COVID, as did everybody. But this $1 million, this jump by $1 million is not helping certain franchises. And I'm not just saying it because of the Rangers. There are other teams who get hurt by it.
Right.
But I believe they said they can move up $4 to $5 million if the players pay the escrow. But we're at a point now where ESPN just paid whatever they paid to televise games. Can we jump it up because of that? They're giving you revenue. People are going to games again. But again, we're going to be relegated to the cap doesn't move because Gary Bettman doesn't want it to. And that's a bad sign. But I'm telling you, if the players pay off the escrow and the cap goes up $4 to $5 million, that's a win for the league.
One more thing, because all these, it seems like, now that the deadline's over, all the GMs are talking with the, so I don't think there's going to be any more moves here other than maybe like minor stuff. But Adam says Don Granato was quote unquote pounding the table for Jordan Greenway. Granato said, I know if we get him in our environment, I believe we're getting a really important hockey player. There's a guy who had him in
the guy who had him, guy who knows him. Listen, I think that's a good move for the Sabres. It's a guy who's probably going to come in and is playing for a job for next year. So you're going to get a motivated Jordan Greenway.
Yeah, it seems like there's untapped potential in there is basically what it sounds like. And similar to Tage. Tage, there was, you put Tage in the right situation and then all of a sudden he flourishes a little bit more. But let me do one more refresh just to make sure there's nothing else hold on. Okay.
Can I give you a weird note before?
Sure.
This is from Kenny Albert. If Dryden Hunt scores a goal for the Calgary Flames this season, he would be the first player ever to score for 4 teams in one season.
Wow.
Dennis O'Brien, Dave McLean, Mark Acrobello, and UC Jokinen previously played for 4 teams in a single season.
Yeah,
so Dryden Hunt can make history if he scores for Calgary.
Mark Arcobello was like a classic tank. This guy was on the Oilers tank for McDavid. He was on the Leafs tank for Matthews. A couple of notes here, and I guess this is maybe what we end with. From Lance Lazowski, works with the Buffalo News, I believe. The Sabres were involved in Chychrun talks until the final hour. In the end, Adams confirmed the Coyotes wanted more from Buffalo than what they ended up getting from the Senators. And then there's the charge in Buffalo, basically. Adams confirms the Coyotes wanted more from the Sabres for Chychrun than ended up getting dealt for. So it sounds like I've heard this saying that when you have trade discussions with certain teams, not all trades are equal. Like maybe you want something else. I mean, for example, Ottawa's draft pick. If the Sabres draft pick might be lower because if we have a better chance of making the playoffs than Ottawa does, they're going to want Ottawa's pick. So,
and Ottawa, I believe, is top 5 protected. That pick.
It might be. But basically there could have been reasons why, just because you're close in the race for the wild card doesn't mean that all your assets are the same. Everything's, there's reasons why. So that makes sense. Because everyone was like, how come the Sabre, that was it for Chychrun. How come we didn't pull the trigger on that? It's because that they didn't want anything like that level from us. Which makes sense because
I also wonder how much it took because Ottawa took all the money.
Yeah,
and they didn't make Arizona retain.
That was part of it because basically, if any team wanted Coyotes to take on any salary, they weren't doing it. They said we don't want to do this. But then that makes Voracek and all these other trades where it's like, well, we took salary on. It's like, why? Voracek's never going to play for you.
And that goes into the point I had earlier on the Coyotes. It's make it make sense to me, and it doesn't. Yeah. So,
all right, one more refresh. I believe that there's nothing else, but nope. That's the Coyotes announcing the Ritchie trade. It's about
Ritchie
the Wagner
for Ritchie.
Yeah. So I believe we are done. I believe that there is no more at this point. It's after 4. So yeah, I think we're.
I think how we can close this is here are the things to watch come the summertime. We'll be on Erik Karlsson watch.
Yes.
Again. Obviously, we'll watch draft stuff. So Connor Bedard, whatever else. I'm not even sure who the biggest free agent on the market is. I know Kane's a free agent, Tarasenko, but those are things I'm very intrigued by Philly now, and I don't think. Huh?
Is he a free agent, or does JVR a free agent, or does he have another?
JVR's a free agent. He's in the last year. That's why you got to move him for something. Yeah. Now you don't get anything for him.
Yeah.
Oh, all right.
All righty. You wanna play us out?
So I'll play us out. Thank you for tuning into this live stream edition of the Breakaway Bandits podcast, part of the Sports Insanity Network. To listen to the podcast, you can go to Anchor, Google, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Check out the website, www.thesportsinsanitynetwork.com for blogs, vlogs, planes, trains, and automobiles. And for Nathan Moser, Noah Tremblay, I'm Mike Rifkin. Thank you for listening to the Breakaway Bandits podcast, part of the Sports Insanity Network.